I'd like to call this meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We now will have public comment for the agenda part of the meeting. An audience member wishing to make a comment shall raise his or her hand and when called upon, state their name, address, or affiliation.
You have to read the notice when you read it. Sunshine Law. Is that the big one?
Yeah, that's right.
Which one?
You're right. Statement of adequate notice. Adequate notice of this meeting was advertised on the district website on January 14th, 2021, and by posting a notice in the Forked River Post Office and the Lenoka Harbor Post Office, and by filing a copy of the notice with the Lacey Township Clerk, as required by the Open Public Meeting Act. Mr. DeGeorge, can we have a call for attendance, please?
Mrs. Claus.
Here.
Mr. Scanlon.
Here.
Mr. Peters.
Present.
Mrs. DeSenza.
Present.
Mrs. Downing.
Present.
Mr. Polino.
Present.
Mrs. McAvoy.
Present.
We have a quorum.
At this time, we will have public comment. An audience member wishing to make a comment shall raise his or her hand and when called upon state their name, address, or affiliation and intention to make a statement. Comments shall be limited to agenda items only. Comments shall be addressed to the board president. Comments shall be made on one issue at a time. Comments shall be limited to 5 minutes. No audience member will be recognized twice until all who wish to comment have been recognized. Please raise your hand if you would like to make a public comment. Sir. And this is on agenda items only.
All right, thank you for granting us time, Madam Chairman.
Sir, can you introduce yourself, please? We don't.
Yes, all right. My name is Neil Roberts. I'm a resident of this town since 1984. I was a substitute teacher in the Lacey schools for 21 years. So I do have some reference to what it's like to teach children and work with staff. All right, I'll be brief, and I have a copy for this, so I won't be taking more than 2 minutes of your time. I am standing here urging this board to appeal to the New Jersey School Boards Association to petition or file suit to suspend or revoke Governor Murphy's executive order requiring all New Jersey school staff and student enrollees to be masked throughout all time spent inside their schools for school year 2021-2022. Masks are harmful to children and adults the longer they are worn without allowing the breathing of fresh air rather than re-inhaling exhaled carbon dioxide. Rebreathing CO2 is by itself harmful to physical health. Oxygen deprivation due to lack of continued fresh oxygen is harmful to every bodily function down to the cell molecular level, most specifically to the brain. COVID-19 death rate among children ages 0 to 17 is, according to the CDC, 0.01% of all child deaths in the U.S. during the pandemic. The numbers, 346 counted as COVID-19 child deaths of that age group, among 48,000 child deaths in the country during that time. That's how they came up with 0.01%. Now, this just came out last week from the American Academy of Pediatrics, which I hope perhaps you would be interested in checking their website for this data so you don't have to take random citizen's word for it. They compiled records from the health departments of 43 states, plus the city of New York, plus the territory Commonwealth of Puerto Rico and Guam. And as of August 18, 2021, throughout the duration of the declared pandemic, shows hospitalization and death is uncommon in children. The state reports showed a range between 0.00%, that was in 7 states, no children died of COVID-19 in those states, up to a range of 0.25% of all child deaths during the study period. Now, that correlates with what the CDC is saying. Only 346 child deaths among 48,000 U.S. child deaths during the 2020-2021 pandemic. So that, in brief, is my case, urging that we just do not let our children and staff suffer through an entire year of this.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts. We'll be commenting during the regular agenda meeting, the regular meeting.
Yeah, me.
Right here.
Yep, thank you.
We appreciate it. Are there any other agenda item only comments at this point? Seeing none, Mr. DeGeorge,
Yes.
anything from you, our
Yes.
business administrator?
Yes, Mrs. McAvoy, there were two via the Google platform, both from Mr. Rizzoli, listed as P.O. Box 174 Forked River. He lists them as general, but they are indeed agenda-related. First is, it is now 1:40 p.m. on August 19, 2021. The deadline to submit comments for tonight's meeting on this Google form is 3 p.m. The agenda for tonight's meeting is not online for first reading to the public. That leaves 1 hour and 20 minutes to read, absorb, consider content, and formulate opinion or response to the subject matter. This is not all caps transparency, lots of exclamation points. What don't you want the public to know? What is the administration hiding? I have saved a copy of this form submission. It had better be presented tonight, or you will have to deal with me, all caps, the taxpayer. So in response, the agenda is in fact online, was online since probably about 12:30, I would say. It is not lost and should not be lost on this board or the members of the public that this board, despite the fact that it does not have to offer this Google platform in the absence of virtual meetings, still offers it for consideration that members of the public who cannot be at the meeting are able to read and submit comments on the agenda or other items. The fact that the agenda is here, I think, is transparency in itself. The board never has anything to hide, neither does the administration. So that is my response.
Was there one more question, Mr. DeGeorge?
Yes, ma'am, I have to pull it up. Whoops, that's not the one. Okay, same Mr. Rizzoli. Only $183,944 is reported on this agenda for co-curricular stipends. Where are the high school totals? Why are they not reported? What is the total for all stipends paid to LTEA members, including all sports stipends? It is now 2:20, so I'm out of time, it seems.
Your 5 minutes are up.
I'm up, I have to go. 2:26 p.m., well for my 3 p.m. deadline to submit the form. Why are we not telling the whole story when it comes to LTEA stipends paid by taxpayers for over and above, quote, fair and equitable education costs? Are all these teachers randomly drug tested like all the students are mandated to be? So the answer to the first question is we will have a special meeting within the next week and a half or so, and at that meeting we will be presenting high school and middle school stipends.
High school in Forked River.
High school and Forked River stipends. So all of them will be reported at that time. Everything will be totaled, and at that meeting we'll have a grand total for every stipend that we pay.
And Mr. DeGeorge, to interject, we are not hiding anything. The reason that the Forked River School and the high school were not on there is because we have a new human resource manager, so it got lost in the old human resource managers. So there's nothing to hide.
Right, never hide anything. That's why we have agendas, and thank you for that. I do not believe that the teachers are randomly drug tested, is that correct?
Correct.
But the students are mandated to be, and there is my response.
Thank you very much, Mr. DeGeorge. Dr. Clark, do you have anything for the agenda meeting?
I do not at this time.
Okay, board, Mrs. Claus, do you have anything for agenda?
Did you
Yes.
close the public comment?
Yes, I did.
Oh, you did,
Yes.
okay.
Yep.
You ready?
Yes,
Okay.
please.
So I wanted to talk a little bit about the road forward. I just talked to Dr. Clark, and she just explained it to me a little bit more about the policy that's on tonight for first read. My concerns were for the general health safety concerns of students, staff members, and visitors, especially the vaccination, number 1, and number 3 was the mask wearing protocol. She explained to me that this is just the policy. We're not actually voting on if we are approving mask wearing tonight or vaccination tonight, if that's correct, but just that we will be putting a policy in place for the next meeting on the 30th.
Right, so I'm just gonna expand a little bit
Yeah.
on that. So Strauss Esme is the organization that writes our policies, and they release guidance for us, letting us know that the road back is no longer applicable and was supplanted by the road forward health and safety guidance for the 21-22 school year. So what happens is that school districts are now required to abolish the previous policy and replace it with 1648. So this is just a policy, it is not the plan. So the reason why the plan, the road forward plan for September is not on the agenda tonight is because it's not finished. Mr. Zelinski, Mrs. Amos, and the administration and I are still completing it, and we're purposely waiting because, as you know, guidance seems to be changing daily. And so, like Mrs. McAvoy said, we do have a special board meeting tentatively scheduled for Monday, August 30th, where we will be approving some final appointments with regard to personnel and our road forward plan, which will have information about the Executive Order 251 that requires masks in school, along with all of those other categories that are listed there.
Right.
So the policy is mandated, meaning that it's not optional for school districts, that we have to adopt it. Does that answer your question?
It does, thank you.
Okay.
Mhm.
And that's why it's on for a first read.
Right.
Next month, it'll be on for a second read and adoption, and by then, we'll already have had our plan
Okay, thank you.
approved and reviewed.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. DeSenza?
Yes, I have an issue. I think we should adopt a resolution to memorialize and add to the official records the authorization for Board President McAvoy to send the letter on behalf of the board to Governor Murphy. I feel that letter is very special and important and should be permanently accessible to the public in the future and recorded in our minutes and not just posted on the website. And I'd like Sanu's opinion, since she's with us tonight. Can we memorialize that letter and make it a permanent part of our meeting tonight?
Well, it would have to be put on the agenda for an action item, and so, I mean, the agenda was already put together. So my recommendation would be is to talk to the superintendent and the board president after this meeting and, you know,
Possibly
potentially.
put it forward on the 30th then?
Yes,
That would be great, because I really
Possibly.
think it should be permanently saved and put in our business records.
but that should be discussed with the board president and the superintendent.
Mrs. McAvoy, can you make a note of that?
Yes, I will. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Items 29 and 30, I saw no documentation on those. It was to approve a plan of some sort, but we didn't get a copy of it. The plan statement of assurance for professional development.
That's actually not a plan, that's just a statement of insurance. That's
Exactly
where
the sentence that it is?
You've
All
already
right.
seen the plan 3 years ago.
Oh, it's the same one.
It's the
Oh,
statement
okay,
of
got it.
assurance that we are administering the plan as was written then. We
No
are gonna
problem.
get to a
Okay,
point where
that-
we have to revise
I
the plan.
remember seeing it in the past.
Excuse me,
Okay.
could you repeat that answer? 'Cause-
Yes. So the statement of assurance is just stating that we are continuing to administer the plan that was developed 3 years ago. We're going to get to a point where we have to revise the plan. We're just not there yet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Good, Mrs. DeSenza?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Peters?
Page 8, item number 20.
Yes. The
Sale
sale.
and disposal?
Sale of disposable
Yes,
assets.
Mr. DeGeorge, we're gonna have this discussion again. I cannot understand for the life of me how a 54-passenger bus, no matter how many miles on it, is only worth $1,500. Is there any possible way that we could send this out for auction? In the past, I said, with the price of scrap metal, it's probably worth more than that. We gotta get every penny we possibly can for this district at the financial aspect we're at right now. And what can we do to get more money for value of something for $1,500 for a 54-passenger bus just seems awful low to me.
Right, I know you've said this before, and I'm just gonna repeat my answer. By time we take out, we need to take out, to harvest the bus, right? We used to put these on at $400 or $500, if you remember that. So we're starting to put them on more closer to what we actually scrap them at. I could show you, if you want, receipts from scrap yards for $1,400 or $1,500 for a 54-passenger bus. That's just what we get. There's no, I mean, we can talk about this.
Yeah, let's talk about that
But
next
it's,
finance meeting, what we can do.
I mean, we can,
Are
but,
we allowed to auction them off with a minimum bid?
you know, again, it's difficult to do because when we harvest, which is remove parts that we might want to keep on hand for repairs of other buses, I don't think anybody's gonna wanna, and typically don't, wind up coming to get them because they're really not as operable as people might think.
Okay.
We're valuing them, and we offer them as is. We didn't say they're operable, and we don't, because they're not really. But when we scrap them for $1,500 or so. That's just been our history.
And over the years, correct me if I'm wrong, has the town purchased any old buses from us so they can use them for recreation? Or do they just borrow our buses?
They typically borrow them. I don't, in my time, I don't think they've purchased any. They just typically borrow them. I don't think that they have, but I can't say for sure.
Okay.
Page 17, co-curricular advisor stipends. 3/4 of, actually halfway down. There's a stipend in there for a data coach for $4,500.
Yes,
What is that exactly?
okay, that's been on the last couple agendas. Dr. Clark, can you explain what we're
Yes.
doing with that?
So we use Linkit that houses all of our assessment data to include the NJSLA, the New Jersey Student Learning Assessments, which we haven't administered due to COVID. However, it houses our in-house assessments, such as the NWEA, the DRA, benchmark assessments. There's a list of them. So our data coaches use Linkit to analyze the data and use it to drive instruction. So they hold PLCs, they meet with the various grades throughout the schools, and they just assist the teachers in setting our own benchmarks. This is gonna be especially important in the upcoming year because we don't have the NJSLA data.
So my question is, there's only one at one school.
We've
They've already
previously
been
approved. Yeah, there will be,
The last couple board meetings, we
The other ones were
approved them.
approved?
yeah, we have a
Okay,
total
we just
of
didn't do one for
6, correct,
Middle
Mr.
Harbor yet?
Zelinski?
No,
Mr.
the
Peters-
others have all been approved.
Yes, we have 6 of them, one at each school, and they are entirely grant funded.
Okay, thank you, that's it.
Thank you. Mr. Scanlon?
I have one thing on the replacement physicians. I just want to make a statement now that the district supervisor position, I had asked that we review and evaluate our needs in terms of administration and supervision, and there wasn't time to do that, so I will be voting no on that position. And the other question I have, I asked, I sent an email to Dr. Clark about the number of paras. Are we up to our quota of 50?
We will be after tonight.
We will be after tonight. Okay,
Yes.
thank you very much.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you. Mrs. Downing?
Okay, I had most of my questions already answered through emails, but the new positions that Mr. DeGeorge grant funded, is that the ESSER fund? that
It is
grant?
mostly ESSER funds, yes.
Okay.
Mostly.
Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Polino?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay, and the only thing I have is the agenda tonight is a little switched. When we come back in from executive session, we will have Mrs. Weinkauf presenting our strategic plan. Then we will have all board business, which are the resolutions. Then we will have the public comment, the board member comments, and committee reports. So it's noted on everyone's agenda. At this time, we will go into executive session.
Excuse
Mr.
me, I have one more thing. I had another question from a parent, that one of the issues with the masks would be when the temperature's too hot in school, and she wanted to know how that gets decided, interior temperature, exterior temperature. Who's gonna just make that call, the principals?
That's, Mrs. DeSenza, that's not an agenda item if it's not from,
It wasn't in policy or anything?
that's not coming from you, correct?
It's from a person.
Correct,
yeah.
that's not an agenda item.
Okay.
Okay, so we're going to go into executive session. Mr. DeGeorge, please.
Be it resolved that a private session be convened for the purpose of discussing confidential personnel matters, confidential legal matters, including but not limited to the current caseload, confidential contractual matters, collective bargaining. The subject matter of these discussions will be disclosed to the public when the reason for confidentiality subsides. The length of private session is estimated to be 40 minutes, after which the board shall reconvene and proceed with business. Action may be taken. Motion, please.
I'll move.
Second?
I have a comment, quickly, right, can I? Yes?
Go ahead.
So is 40 minutes going to give us enough time to do what we have to do tonight, or we have to?
We're going to try our hardest. We discussed that today, and we are going to try to, we might have a full house, so we will try our hardest to get back by 7 PM.
Okay.
All in favor?
Can
We had a first
can I
and
get
a
a second, please?
So I'll second it.
Okay,
We move
thank you,
on.
thank you. All right,
Here we go. I'd like to resume the meeting for August 19th, 2021. At this time, we'll have the report of the superintendent, and we would like to introduce our strategic planning presentation by Kathy Weinkauf, our New Jersey School Board Association field representative. So welcome, Kathy.
Actually, Kathy, can you just give me a few minutes? Because I'm going to intro you. So I'm just going to make some comments first, and then I'm going to have you come up. Okay?
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Welcome, everybody. Hard to believe it's our August board meeting. I hope our families and our students have been having a good summer, enjoying the nice weather that we've been having. As is typical for this time of year, I do like to tell our school community what it is that we've accomplished and what we've been doing over the summer. So I didn't get a chance to do this because if you recall, last August, we were just getting ready to open school in what proved to be a very, very unusual year. But I do want to take the opportunity to just talk about what our grounds and maintenance staff have done and what our teachers and administrators have accomplished. Our custodial and grounds and maintenance staff cleaned and organized over 650,000 square feet of school buildings and cared for 150 acres of school grounds, playgrounds, and athletic fields, and that's just tremendous. Our buildings look amazing, our grounds look amazing, so kudos to them and to Mr. Oliveira, who's our facilities manager, for getting all of that done. Our guidance counselors, child study team members, secretarial staff prepared over 4,000 student schedules and class lists. The administrative team prepared master schedules, conducted numerous interviews to hire outstanding staff, and we have quite a few on our agenda this evening. In fact, we have so many that we are scheduling a special board meeting on Monday, August 30th, because we just weren't able to finish. We also have our ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 monies that have afforded us the opportunity to hire extra staff, such as instructional coaches, and so that meeting will hopefully finish us up and our interviews will be complete. The Transportation Department prepared over 160 bus routes and worked hard on getting our buses ready to transport our students. Our buses also look amazing, so kudos to Maria Valiente, who is filling the big shoes of Mr. Hannon, who after many, many years retired, and she's doing a fantastic job, so kudos to her. And additionally, both our summer enrichment and our extended school year programs were phenomenal, so thank you to our parents for helping us get our students here, to our teachers who taught some excellent courses, and to Mr. Bond and his team for an exceptional extended school year program, well over 250 students in that program. And Mr. Zelinski, close to 300 students in our summer enrichment, correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay. So, all things considered, the programs just ran without a hitch, and I know that our students participated in some great courses. All right, let's talk about the new school year, shall we? So, as I mentioned at the July board meeting, I stated that we are positioned to open school as normal as possible on September 7th, full day, serving lunches, for in-person instruction, because as you know, virtual or remote interchangeable, is not an option for September, so far. And again, information is changing daily. That may change. As of right now, that is no longer an option. So, what I also said on July 15th is that masks would be optional for the beginning of the school year, but that we were going to keep an eye on things. I went back and I listened to myself. That is exactly what I said. As you know, on Friday, August 6th, the governor issued Executive Order 251. I'm sure by now you all know what Executive Order 251 is, but if you don't, it essentially has a lot of information, but it requires all students, educators, staff, and visitors to wear masks, regardless of vaccination status, in the indoor premises of all public schools with limited exceptions. Those exceptions are noted in the executive order. So to say that we, are as frustrated as I'm sure all of you, and there may be differing opinions in the room, I'm not sure. We are frustrated. Because it's a new mandate and it came out on August 6th. And we were pretty much thinking that we were ready to open school as normal as possible. But the bottom line is that we can't have two sets of rules. And we are required to comply with the mandate, whether we agree with it or not. And I just told you our feelings up here. I wouldn't have said what I said at the July board meeting if I didn't believe that masks should be optional. I'm not gonna speak for the board members up here, but we have had numerous conversations, and I can tell you that there's really no one up here that disagrees with me. So, with all of that said, we have received numerous emails and phone calls about the matter, as you can imagine, numerous. Myself, the board members, Mr. Zielinski, other administrators, principals. The tone of the communications have ranged from frustration, anger, disappointment, and have also included research on why masks should and shouldn't be worn, specifically by children. Tons of research, and there's tons of research out there. So we're in the process of finalizing our road forward plan, using the guidance that has been provided to us by the New Jersey Department of Education and the New Jersey Department of Health and Safety guidance. And of course, that, mandates in-person instruction. But most recently, after that announcement was made, another announcement was made that that remote instruction is not available except in the cases of quarantine due to confirmed cases of COVID. So for example, if a student has to be quarantined because of exposure, and we're gonna outline this a little bit more when we get to, when we present our reopening plan early next week, our road forward plan early next week, it's going to be outlined, but that is the only instance, as of right now, where a student would receive either remote or virtual instruction if he or she has to be quarantined. So that's where we are right now. We are going to be, again, outlining all of this in our road forward plan. As of right now, masks are not optional because the executive order does mandate it. Now, there are going to be questions that we're going to read at the end that various parents have submitted. I'm sure there are going to be lots of questions. I hope that we will be able to answer all of them, but if we can't answer them all tonight, hopefully when we submit the road forward plan, that will answer your questions. We are also going to be sending a communication to our families early next week, just so that you have an understanding of some of the procedures and protocols that we're going to be putting in place. And I'm not even going to get to that yet because I know that that's a question that is going to come up. So those are my comments right now about the road forward, about Executive Order 251, about where we are. I think I've been very clear on our feelings about it. But at this time, like Mrs. McAvoy said, we have been working very, very hard on our strategic plan. Unfortunately, like many things, COVID interrupted our process but didn't stop us. So I'm happy to say that through the efforts of Mrs. Weinkoff, who is our New Jersey School Boards Association Field Services rep, we successfully completed our strategic plan. Kathy is here with us tonight to present that plan, and then what's going to happen is the board is going to review the plan that is in this beautiful bound book, and then we are going to include that at our August 30th board meeting to formally adopt our strategic plan. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Kathy. Board members, I'm going to ask you to flip around to be able to watch the presentation. Yes. And are you going to control the keyboard?
Yes. Kathy, when you want to advance a slide, just say advance and I'll advance it for you.
Oh, okay.
We
Okay.
can, but on the
Great.
presentation better.
Don't touch it. I need it to come down.
I'll slide backwards.
Oh, okay. Even though I'm with you, sister. Okay, I got this. Thanks, Skip. So, we started this process back in 2019. And it has, as Dr. Clark said, been a long and winding road. Included in that road, just so everybody knows, I am responsible for all of the weather events that generally happen here in Lacey Township, because we always seem to have a major weather event whenever I come to Lacey. So go ahead. So we went on to started the process to develop a 5-year strategic plan for the Lacey Township School District. And as we go through and develop our strategic plan, the board is committed to moving forward with the work that the stakeholders from the Lacey Township School District came together and moved forward. And we had a planning session whereby we gathered information that was put together by 2 committees that created a State of the School and a State of the Community report. They worked independently, and then we all came together in March and for a Friday evening and a Saturday planning session, created a vision for the district. We looked at the current belief statements that the district had in place, and we made some adjustments to it. We also looked at the current mission statement, and we made some adjustments to the mission statement. Then we did an exercise where we identified strengths and challenges that are facing the school district. We created goals and objectives, and then did an exercise where we came up with some strategies to carry out those goals. And our weekend planning session ended at that point. And then we had teams that were put together to create the action plans. So our strategic planning really answers 3 questions. It is, where are we now? Where do we want to be, and how are we going to get there? So as I said, our session really did come together with the state of the schools and state of the community, and the people who participated in those 2 committees and created those reports were staff members as well as community members. We created, as I said, the vision, came up with the action plans, and I am here tonight to deliver the final plan to the Board of Education. They will review the plan, and as Dr. Clark said, at the next meeting, they will adopt the plan, and then Dr. Clark will begin implementation of the strategic plan. Having a strategic plan in place really does set forth long-term goals for the district. It helps establish a long-term or a long-range budget plan so that the items that are contained within the strategic plan, the budget can be implemented through the budget over a identified year within the action plans. And it really does provide that framework for annual goals. So for people in the community who may not be aware, the Board of Education annually has to evaluate the superintendent of schools. The superintendent of schools is the only employee of the Board of Education. She is their only direct employee. Every other employee that is hired here in the district has to come to the Board of Education as a recommendation from the superintendent. So Dr. Clark will get evaluated on the progress and the achievement of the goals through the strategic plan. So we had our 2 planning meetings, March 6th and 7th.
We were here Friday and Saturday, and Monday, everything fell apart. And we resumed in April, virtually, at first, to get our action teams trained. And then the action teams met, and we met again on June 30th to review the action plans that the action teams had developed. And as I said, our planning really did encompass Board of Education members, the superintendent and business administrator were there, the administrators, teachers, parents, and community members volunteered their time and really contributed to the success of the plan. And we had a nice representation of the stakeholders here from Lacey, and we had about 50 people who participated in the process. So it was a great weekend of planning that we had done. So I just wanted to just talk about the belief statements that we had come together, and we did make some adjustments to during the strategic planning process. And of course, our students really are our highest priority here in the district. I'm not going to read them to you, but I will share them with you. And this is really what we believe about the educational process here in Lacey Township. And here are the final four. There were 8 in total belief statements. Once we finished the belief statements, then we moved on to the mission statement. And we did make a few tweaks to the mission statement. It's important to point out that the mission statement drives everything that happens here in your school district. It drives the decisions that the board makes. It drives the educational process. It really does drive everything that we do here within the school district. So once we did the revision, you will see it is to inspire excellence in each student's educational experience and to instill strong values and of pride and tradition. We ended up with 3 goal areas. Our first goal area was learner success, and really to enhance the success, student success in the school with the help of family and staff development. And then these are the objectives that fall underneath the learner success goals. And then underneath, with the action plans, underneath each of these objectives are activities that will be carried out in order to achieve the objective. Resources will be attached to each activity, a staff who is going to be responsible for working on that particular activity. We will also have timelines attached to each activity within the strategic plan, and then we will have indicators of success, how we will know if those activities under each of the objectives have been achieved. Go ahead. Our second goal was outreach and engagement, and to have consistent ongoing communication and involvement between all stakeholders of the Lacey Township School District community. And again, we had 4 objectives underneath this goal as we move forward. Our third goal was finance and facilities. This one really had 2 separate goals. We had one finance goal to improve and enhance programming through increased revenue. We have 3 objectives under this particular finance goal, and our facilities goal was really to restructure to improve communication, cohesion, programming, and supports, and the one objective here was the early childhood program. We did an exercise at the end of our strategic planning day where our participants were really asked, what did we learn? We call it a crumble and toss. Everybody puts their one takeaway from the weekend. They put it on a piece of paper. We crumble it up and kind of throw it into the center of the room, and everybody picks them up and reads. This is just a sampling of some of the takeaways from our weekend planning session. This is one of the favorite highlights of the job that I do in working for our boards, because I get to come in and see where a school district starts in the strategic planning process, and once we get to the end of the 5 years of the plan, I always enjoy seeing where we do end up. The next steps will be for the board to adopt the plan, the administration implements the plan, and then updates on the progress towards the completion of the strategic plan become important as we move forward. And that will be for Dr. Clark to give at board meetings, noting specific items on the board agenda that refer directly back to the strategic plan. She will begin next September, giving an annual State of the Strategic Plan report, where she will let the stakeholders know, here's what we worked on this year, here are the things that we've accomplished, here are the things that we still have in progress, and there may be some things that are contained within the strategic plan that we will not be able to move forward with, and she will let you know why. And then I will be sending it to her to be put up onto the district website so that stakeholders, board members, community members, staff members can watch and monitor the progress towards the achievement of the goals within the strategic plan. That's really all I have. You do have, each one of you, a bound copy of the final report. Contained within the report, you will see there is a synopsis of the entire process from start to finish. I include in here all of the committee members from the 2 reports that were done, our weekend participants. You'll see who participated in our action teams. And then the beautiful artwork that was done during the weekend is in here for our visioning, just so you can see what some of the before and after artwork for our visioning exercise. And then you will also see the action plan. I gave Dr. Clark 2 3-ring binders. That really includes everything from soup to nuts from when we started, samples of some of the materials that I brought in, so that you have it as you move forward in the future. So it was an extreme pleasure for me to be able to assist you all through the process, and I really look forward to watching and observing how you progress through the strategic process.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Weinkauf. We all, You're okay, Kathy. You're okay. Okay, okay, okay. Once again, thank you, Mrs. Weinkauf. We all appreciate your hard work and the work of New Jersey school boards. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you so much, Kathy.
At this time, we'll proceed to board business. After board business, we will have public comment. Board members, we're going to start on item number 1, minutes. Can I have a motion, please?
Motion.
Second?
Second, Peters.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Claus.
Yes.
Mr. Scanlon.
Yes.
Mr. Peters.
Yes.
Mrs. DeSenza.
Abstain due to absence.
Mrs. Downing.
Abstain due to absence.
Mr. Polino.
Yes.
Mrs. McAvoy.
Yes. Next is item number 2, list of bills. Can we have a motion, please?
Motion, Peters?
Second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Claus.
Yes.
Mr. Scanlon.
Yes.
Mr. Peters.
Yes, and I abstain, number 23.
Thank you. Mrs. DeSenza.
Yes on all except nay on 954756 and 954755.
Mrs. Downing.
Yes, and I'm abstaining on number 2, bill number 524950.
Thank you. Mr. Polino.
Yes.
Mrs. McAvoy.
Yes. Next is item numbers 3 and 4, budget transfers.
Motion,
I'll second it.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Mrs. Claus.
Yes.
Mr. Scanlon.
Yes.
Mr. Peters.
Yes.
Mrs. DeSenza.
yes.
Mrs. Downing.
Yes.
Mr. Polino.
Yes.
Mrs. McAvoy.
Yes. Next is items 5 to 21. They are all the financial items for the district, the self-reporting items, change of orders, emergent repairs at Mill Pond and the Lacey Township High School, removal of the tank, the Lacey Township High School wrestling room, receipt of quotations. Then we're on page 6, purchase of student data warehouse software, New Jersey State contract purchase, School Boards Association. Page 7, approval of agreements. Page 8, food service standards, district standard operating procedures, sale of disposable assets, and use of facilities. Can we have a motion, please?
Motion, Peters?
Second,
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Claus.
Yes.
Mr. Scanlon.
Yes.
Mr. Peters.
Yes.
Mrs. DeSenza.
yes.
Mrs. Downing.
Yes.
Mr. Polino.
Yes.
Mrs. McAvoy.
Yes. Next, page 9, items 22 to 25, out-of-district tuition, out-of-district placements, award of parental transportation, and student transportation. Motion, please.
Motion.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Mrs. Claus.
Yes.
Mr. Scanlon.
Yes.
Mr. Peters.
Yes.
Mrs. DeSenza.
Yes.
Mrs. Downing.
Yes.
Mr. Polino.
Yes.
Mrs. McAvoy.
Yes. On page 10, items 26 and 27, policies and regulations. First read and second reading. Motion, please.
Motion, Peters?
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Mrs. Claus.
Yes, but I'm
Ms.
voting no on 2624 on the grading system. Like I stated before, I just feel that's a disservice to the students in our district.
Thank you. Mr. Scanlon.
Yes.
Mr. Peters.
Yes.
Mrs. DeSenza.
Abstain, I didn't have adequate time to review because of transit.
Mrs. Downing.
Yes.
Mr. Polino.
Yes.
Mrs. McAvoy.
Yes. Next, item number 28, we are going to table till the August 30th meeting. That is the strategic plan that Mrs. Weinkauf just presented. So right now, the motion will be on items 29 to 36. District professional development, district mentoring, the handbooks for all the schools, and the curriculum approval and the athletic schedule approval. Motion, please.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
What were the numbers again you're doing now?
29 to 36.
To 36, okay.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Claus.
Yes.
Mr. Scanlon.
Yes.
Mr. Peters.
Yes.
Mrs. DeSenza.
Yes on all, but I'm going to abstain on 31, 32, and 33. They were too lengthy to review in time for the meeting, I'm sorry.
Mrs. Downing.
Yes.
Mr. Polino.
Yes.
Mrs. McAvoy.
Yes. Next, item number 37, harassment, intimidation, and bullying. Motion, please.
Motion,
Second.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Claus.
Yes.
Mr. Scanlon.
Yes.
Mr. Peters.
Yes.
Mrs. DeSenza.
yes.
Mrs. Downing.
Yes.
Mr. Polino.
I have a abstain on 37.
Okay, hold on one second. Mrs. McAvoy.
Yes. Next is on page 12, donations, and the board would like to thank everyone who has donated the following generous donations. STEM kits, used chicken books, used children's books. Sorry.
You know.
Classroom supplies, backpacks with school supplies, donut decorating kits, music stand, and more used chicken. Oh my God.
You know what?
Don is dyslexic tonight.
More used children's books.
Motion.
Thank you.
That was the longest,
Peter.
that was the longest motion I've ever heard.
Second, please.
I got it.
Any discussion?
Thank you.
Okay, roll call, please.
Mrs. Claus.
Yes, and thank you.
Mr. Scanlon.
Yes, and thank you.
Mr. Peters.
Yes, and thank you for the chickens.
Oh, this is gonna become a thing. Mrs. DeSenza.
Yes, and thank you very much.
Mrs. Downing.
Yes, thank you.
Mr. Polino.
I'll give you my vote after the board president says children's books two more times.
Children's books.
Yes,
Yes.
thank you.
Yay, you can have it. Mrs. McAvoy.
Yes, and thank you again. Next is on page 13, programs and curriculum. Motion, please.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Claus.
Yes.
Mr. Scanlon.
Yes,
Mr. Peters.
Yes.
Mrs. DeSenza.
Yes,
Mrs. Downing.
I'm going to abstain on New Jersey Excel, but yes for Stockton University.
Thank you. Mr. Polino.
Yes,
Mrs. McAvoy.
Yes. Next, at the bottom of page 13, professional days and workshops. Motion, please.
I'll make the motion.
second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Mrs. Claus.
Yes.
Mr. Scanlon.
Yes,
Mr. Peters.
Yes.
Mrs. DeSenza.
Yes,
Mrs. Downing.
Yes,
Mr. Polino.
yes,
Mrs. McAvoy.
Yes. Next, we have certificated personnel, numbers 1 to 12. Resignations, new positions, replacement positions, long-term substitutes, professional personnel transfer, amendment of salary, leave of absence, co-curricular and advisor stipends for all the schools except for the high school in Forked River, which we will approve on August 30th. Co-curricular athletic stipends, co-curricular volunteer, summer athletic trainer, in-school printing, and employment as substitute professional personnel. Motion, please.
motion.
Second?
second.
Any discussion? On the replacement positions at the top of page 15 to the board, Virginia Guys. Instead of master's step A, that should be prorated, 34,800. So please mark that in your agendas.
which one was that, Mrs.?
That would be page
No, the
15 at the
second one.
top, Virginia Guys.
Got it.
And then also on page 21 to the board,
38.
Barbara Baran. That should be prorated to 10,192. Down to Lauren Farley. That is $12 an hour. Down to Renee Ponticello. That is also $12 per hour. And Janine Wiederman, that is also $12 per hour. So they are corrections in the agenda. So we had a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Okay.
I just, you've made that into quite a large bite there.
I'm sorry.
And I will be voting no on a district supervisor for reasons I expressed before, including the fact that I did want to review our administrative picture, to look at what, what we have and review our needs. So,
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Claus.
Yes.
Mr. Scanlon.
yes on everyone except District Supervisor Timothy Dowd.
Mr. Peters.
Yes, but everything except section number 3.
The whole section, Mr. Peters?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mrs. DeSenza.
Yes on all.
Mrs. Downing.
Yes on all, except I'm abstaining on the Lacey Township Middle School on page 18.
Thank you. Mr. Polino.
Yes.
Mrs. McAvoy.
Yes, Mrs. Downing at the top of page 15, number 3. Do you want to abstain on the first one?
Yeah, oh, yes, I'm sorry. Thank you, Mrs.
Where's that?
McAvoy.
You're welcome.
Number 3, district supervisor, I have to abstain. Thank you.
I didn't realize
Okay,
that.
and then me, Mr.
Yes, you're yes, right?
Yes, and I'm a yes to all. And I'd like to officially welcome Mr. Timothy Dowd as our new district supervisor. Mr. Dowd, I don't want to put you on the spot. Do you want to say anything?
I just said that I'm really excited to accept this position. I can't wait to work with the people in this district, my colleagues, students, families. Really look forward to working hard for you all. Thank you very much.
Okay, welcome again. We're happy to have you. Okay. We are... Okay, now we're on non-certificated personnel, items 1 to 9.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Mrs. Claus.
Yes.
Mr. Scanlon.
Yes.
Mr. Peters.
Yes.
Mrs. DeSenza.
Yes.
Mrs. Downing.
Yes.
Mr. Polino.
Yes.
Mrs. McAvoy.
Yes. Now, Mr. DeGeorge, do we have a walk-on resolution?
We have 3, in fact.
Okay.
First one is approval of settlement agreement. It reads, move that the Lacey Township Board of Education approve the settlement agreement with respect to civil action docket number OCN L 001046-20 as discussed in private session. Motion?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Are you ready for it?
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Claus.
Yes.
Mr. Scanlon.
Yes.
Mr. Peters.
No.
Mrs. DeSenza.
Yes.
Mrs. Downing.
Yes.
Mr. Polino.
Yes.
Mrs. McAvoy.
Yes.
All right, number 2, rescindment of offer of and termination of employment. Move that the Lacey Township Board of Education rescind and terminate the offer of employment made to staff member number 855911 and staff member 856337 for the 21-22 school year as discussed in private session. Motion, please.
I'll make that.
I'll second.
Discussion?
Roll call?
Mrs. Claus.
Yes.
Mr. Scanlon.
Yes.
Mr. Peters.
Yes.
Mrs. DeSenza.
Yes.
Mrs. Downing.
Yes.
Mr. Polino.
Yes.
Mrs. McAvoy.
Yes.
Third and final, rescindment of offer and termination of employment. Move that the Lacey Township Board of Education rescind and terminate the offer of employment made to staff member number 856693 for the 21-22 school year as discussed in private session. Motion, please.
Motion, Peters.
Second.
I'll second.
Discussion. Ready?
Roll call, please?
Mrs. Claus.
Yes.
Mr. Scanlon.
No.
Mr. Peters.
Yes.
Mrs. DeSenza.
Yes.
Mrs. Downing.
No.
Mr. Polino.
No.
Mrs. McAvoy.
No.
Motion fails.
Okay. At this point, we will have public comment. An audience member wishing to make a comment shall raise his or her hand and when called upon, state their name, address, or affiliation and intention to make a statement. Comments shall be addressed to the board president. Comments shall be made on one issue at a time. Comments shall be limited to 5 minutes. No audience member will be recognized twice until all who wish to comment have been recognized. I realize everybody's frustration level is high. I just ask to be respectful of each other and to the board. At this time, ma'am, you're first.
Thank you. I just have to leave to go get my kids from football.
No problem. Please go to the podium and name and address, please.
And watch your
And
step,
don't
watch your step when you
come
leave.
down.
We gave her 10, give her 10, we'll try to give you a better
I am
score.
watching myself. Okay, first I wanted to say thank you for the opportunity to utilize my freedom of speech while we have it. My name is Morgan Charterina, and my address, you said?
Yes, please.
I live at 907 Tappan Street in Forked River, and my children all attend the Lacey schools. Okay, so I have 5 minutes, right, you said?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna talk fast and try to get my point. The first issue that I would like to discuss in regards to the masks of our children, social anxiety and the teenagers. Social media has damaged them enough. My daughter, specifically, is already shy and introverted. She went into high school last year as a freshman, wearing the masks and doing virtual. It changed her. It changed her completely because not only is she already shy and introverted, but now she walks around with a mask on her face. That mask also gave her acne, which turned into self-esteem issues because now her face was covered. My beautiful cheerleader daughter, who's never had self-esteem issues but was always shy and introverted, now has self-esteem issues because her face has a new issue from these masks. I also wanted to speak about my kindergartner. I have 3 children. I have a 15-year-old, a 10-year-old, and a 6-year-old. My 15-year-old, we just discussed her social anxiety. My 10-year-old has a learning disability, and he has an IEP. I will talk about that and the masks in just a moment. But my kindergartner, my 6-year-old, last year going into 1st grade, he's naturally complying to this, and it's concerning me. He has actually even said to me, "Mom, just put it on if that's what they said." We're now teaching our children to have no voice because they all walk around, with all respect, with muzzles on their faces. And we're teaching them that this is okay. In America, we're teaching them that having no voice is okay and just put the mask on. I also really want to talk about this, and it's going to sound a little crazy, but it's not. Child abduction and these masks. And it's so concerning to me. In third world countries and other places besides America, home of the free and the brave, how much easier is it going to be now in our own country for these abductors to take our children when they all look the same and their faces are covered? You put a hat on a child, walk away with them, they're gone. That's so concerning for me that this is now what we are complying to, if we comply to it. Freedom of speech. Again, third world countries. If our children have masks on their faces, they're not going to talk as much as they would with not having them on their faces. And that's what we're teaching them by complying, that this is okay. Fauci has eaten his own words on what masks do. He ate his own words, yet we're still complying, even though he said it himself and went back on what he said. Now here we are with a new pandemic, with a new issue. Everyone threw the masks on again. No, we have to stand up and fight for our rights and fight for what we believe in before it's too late and we're literally a little Hitler country. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Charterina, and we'll address all the comments at the end. Thank you for standing up.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, enjoy. Anyone else? Yes, please.
Hello, my name is Hayden Daly. I live at 149 Carriage Way. I'm 17 years old and I'm an upcoming senior at Lacey Township High School. I've had a pretty good summer. Me and my friends have enjoyed doing many of the things that we've not been able to do since the summer of 2019. This past summer has been quote-unquote normal. Along the Jersey Shore this summer, there have been numerous large events, countless concerts, sports games, and festivals. The most notable being the Fish concert just about a week ago in Atlantic City, which had almost 40,000 people attending. That's more than the population of Atlantic City itself, which is 38,000. At all these events, wearing a mask was optional. Practically nobody wore one. Despite this, in just a few weeks, me and my peers will be returning to LTHS for our final year of high school, only to once again be forced to wear a mask for 7 hours a day now that schools are reopening for full days. This past June, masks were made optional for all students and staff across the state due to excessive heat. I'm not sure if Governor Murphy knows this, but early September is often just as, if not hotter, than June. Let us not also forget that children and young people are statistically the least at risk of severe infection and especially death from the coronavirus. As such, seeing as Murphy's new school mask mandate will take effect this September, despite the statewide mask mandate being rescinded this past May, which seemingly will not come back, we will have kids sitting at desks in classrooms with masks on, while other people can continue to pack restaurants, movie theaters, bars, and still attend these aforementioned large events, all without being forced to mask up. The logical inconsistency of these public health edicts from the governor is beyond evident. Therefore, I strongly urge you, the board, to do whatever you possibly can to oppose mandatory masking in our schools. I know you think your hands are tied, but they aren't totally. The superintendent has already taken a step in the right direction with her letter to the governor, in which I commend. The public opinion of Lacey is clear. We want a normal school year with no mask mandates. Thank you.
Thank you, Hayden. We appreciate when students come. We love to hear from our students. Thank you. Next.
Hi, Anne-Marie Leiter, Carriageway, the Woods of Bamber. How's everybody tonight? I know I have 5 minutes. As much as I want to say, like, the masks are a bunch of, we all know that. I don't envy any of you. I appreciate all of you, and I'm sure that you're going to do what we all want, which is to represent us. With that, let's just say the masks have to be worn. What about, my concern is, I'm hoping they're not, but what happens in gym class? Last year, so now I only have somebody entering 7th grade. Last year, gym class wasn't really gym class. Last year, the kids weren't allowed to use the water fountains, the refillable things that we spent money on. It's gonna be a longer day. So if masks are going to be necessary, I ask that each of you really think about what every single child is gonna have to go through all day with, I can't put any more water in my kid's backpack. So think about that. Think about choir and drama, that sports were allowed to take place without masks, but drama and choir had to wear something. That's ridiculous. My children have been co-mingling with a lot of these parents' kids all summer long. So I won't take up your time. Y'all know how I feel. It's not my first time at this rodeo. So I'm just here, as always, so you know I'm here, and I can't wait for Lacey's Board of Education, all of you, Mr. Zielinski, all of you. I want eye contact, all of you, to represent us and what we want as best as you can. I trust you, we have no choice, we have to trust you. So thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Leiter. Next.
I know a good rallying guy if you need more. Robert Gender, Bob White Court, Forked River. I'd love to come up here like Matt Walsh did and drop a truth bomb and mic drop and leave, but I'm not going to be able to do that off the cuff, so I'm going to read what I prepared. At the very start of the pandemic last year, my wife and I decided we would withdraw my son and homeschool him for the 2020-2021 school year, as it was obvious to us that the school year would be problematic, to say the least, and a disaster at worst. We thought for sure going into this school year we would see a return to normalcy, and we had even began to feel very good about things with the mask optional guidance that came down from Governor Murphy as last year concluded. The fact that our governor has turned a complete 180 in the last month and gone back to mandating the masking of school children is frightening, and we are regretting our decision to re-enroll our son. Over the course of the past 18 months of this pandemic, I have emailed you guys and my experiences as a parent and as a youth wrestling coach. I feel I'm somewhat qualified to speak on behalf of our students about the effects this pandemic has had on our children over the last year, as I see and interact with well over 100 kids in multiple wrestling programs in Lacey and at our club in Ocean County. I've witnessed our kids' attitudes and personalities change from happy-go-lucky to some of them becoming flat-out unhappy and withdrawn. Our entire Lacey youth wrestling season, our rec season, was taken away from us last year. Most of the kids in town don't have the parental support or the financial means to join the wrestling clubs that I take my son to, so again, their whole season was lost. When someone in a position of authority tells a child to do something, for the most part, a child's going to do it. Most kids will follow guidance no matter how it makes them feel, but over time, I've seen the effects on the kids. You can see it in their eyes, you can see it in their faces, you can see it in their expressions. Kids do not like adverse change. We as parents must get our kids back to a normal learning environment. The fact that anyone in a position of authority can think that a young child can safely wear a face covering without any problem is denying reality. Kids, by their very nature, get their hands and face dirty to begin with, and adding a face covering or a mask that they are breathing through, talking through, sneezing, coughing in, oftentimes dropping, maybe on the bathroom floor, and probably even using as a napkin at some point during a 6-hour day, put back over their nose and mouth, cannot be viewed as something that's healthy. Just shouldn't be. If you took the time to read my emails, you'd know that I've traveled to many youth wrestling sporting events throughout the country over the last year and watched well over 5,000 kids participating indoors with absolutely no COVID protocols. There has been not one COVID issue or consequence at any of these events that would be worth discussing. No child has gotten seriously ill. If they did, you would be seeing this on the national news. There's been nothing on the news. In these times that we're living in, if a child had succumbed to COVID due to a wrestling event, it would be all over the place. It just hasn't happened. And wrestling, I would think, is probably a little more disgusting than sitting in class all day. My most recent email to you was regarding an event that was just held in Harrah's right here in New Jersey at the end of July. New Jersey hosted an indoor wrestling event with 2,700 youth athletes plus their family members, and there has been nothing negative to come out of it. 2,700 wrestlers wrestling and staying in Harrah's, sleeping there, eating there, with zero COVID protocols, and nothing's come out of it. Logic dictates that you must ask the question, how an event like that and the Fish concert in Atlantic City, Jimmy Buffett in Camden, Guns N' Roses at Bethlehem Stadium can go off without any protocols, but a 6-year-old must sit in school all day and wear a mask. I know I am preaching to the choir as I've had discussions with some of you, and I've been told exactly that. While agreeing with me while sitting up there is one thing, but not taking any action to address the situation makes you as culpable as Governor Murphy. Lastly, I take great issue with your letter to Governor Murphy, which went so far as to put in bold that you will comply with all mandates. You basically took a knee. How can you claim to agree with us at the request that masks be made optional in your letter, but at the end reassure the governor that you will do whatever the tyrant tells you to do? Where is his motivation to take you seriously? We have a few weeks left to form a real plan of action, and something just came to light in the last 40 minutes that I wasn't prepared to talk on, but I will. The Middletown School District put out their strategic plan, which I guess you guys haven't done yet.
Road to recovery.
Road to recovery, whatever it is. In it, they state, and I'm going to try and read really quick. They talk about the resolution, and then they go on to speak about what they're going to do. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Middle Township Board of Education that the following shall constitute the district's policy as required by EO 251. Pursuant to EO 251, all staff, students, and volunteers to the indoor premises of the school district shall be required to wear face masks, except in the following instances. When doing so would inhibit...
Mr. Shinder, I'm sorry.
Two seconds. Excuse me,
Excuse me, we're following
When
you.
doing so would inhibit the health of a child, The district shall accept an individual or parental testimony
5 minutes, Board
to the
President.
evidence.
I tried to stop him.
Basically, what they're saying, and I hope you take it into consideration, they will accept a parent's letter to the loopholes in the executive order. Not a doctor's, a parent's.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Hey, guys. Edward Richardson, 607 Sunrise Boulevard. I don't know many of you. I know Mrs. Klaus from football. I know Mr. DeGeorge because he dealt with my son Henry last year with an issue. And I'm sure everybody up here has the best of intentions. Everybody has a different view on things. The overall, as was stated by this previous gentleman, long-term effects of mask wearing and kids that are younger than my son who's 14. They learn by watching your face. They learn pronunciation. They learn how to respond to each other. I mean, these are just, this is factual, you know. My son is a good athlete, going on great. He has more ability in his pinky, or I do, than his whole body, you know. So he plays lacrosse year-round, and he plays football. Now, at these lacrosse tournaments, they're banging in each other. I mean, there's sweat, blood, all, you know, everything. It's full contact, as you know, in football. We've been at different states. We've been in rooms together with numerous people like that gentleman that just said. Not one issue, not one. It's just amazing to me, on top of everything else, that nobody's looking at the flu numbers, and, you know, that's optional. You know, but the COVID thing, you have to do it. You know what I mean? It's just, it's beyond me. The optics, what we're teaching our kids is everybody has to conform to something that doesn't make sense. And if you think it makes sense, then to me, you have no sense, because nothing is making sense with this. The CDC's not on the same page. Fauci's not on the same page. It's a very political football at this point. A mandate is not a law. That's the biggest thing. A mandate is not a law, okay? If I refuse to do something, do whatever you want, you know, but that's the bottom line. My question to you guys, all right, my main question here would be, what is the protocol for if a child gets sick this year, like last year, all right? You're gonna have everybody come back to school. I'm upset with the fact that you're not doing virtual, all right? Because if you're making kids come to school and you're forcing them to come and wear a mask, then they should be allowed, if the parents are able to learn from home, get a tutor, whatever they need to be able to pass the subjects and do it on their time, because it's, to a lot of people, it's not fair, right? I mean, a lot of people financially can't do it. They have certain criteria. So my question is, I'm sorry, is if somebody gets COVID, if a child gets COVID, are you guys gonna, like, if they come back in September, right, there is a possibility that this could all get shut down again, right? You can't say, well, we're just gonna continue this, because this can't go on forever. I mean, it's not going, COVID's not going away, right? I mean, we all know that, the Delta, whatever they wanna call it, it's gonna be with us.
We're going to answer all the questions at the end, so
Okay.
we wrote yours down.
All right, so that was the main question, you know, is the protocol for every school, if, you know, and especially with sports. That's all, okay?
Yes, thank you very
I
much.
appreciate your time, and I appreciate every one of you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Colleen Gaguski. I live at 554 Rosewood Drive, Linook Harbor. So I have two children, one who will be entering kindergarten this year and one who's going into 7th grade. Last year, my little one went to a private pre-K in Lacey where he never once wore a mask. Never. His school was never shut down. None of the kids in his class wore a mask, and he was perfectly fine. This year, my husband and I decided to pull him and put him in a private kindergarten where masks are optional because he's 6. He's 6 years old. How is he supposed to learn to read with a mask on? How is he supposed to know what the teacher's telling him or see facial expressions? He's never worn a mask. I've never masked him in the stores. I work in a doctor's office where there's a doctor, myself, and a coworker. All during the pandemic, we were virtual up until the summer, and then we were required to see patients one at a time with our masks on. We all got COVID the same exact time, and we all wore our masks for the 7 hours that we were in the office. All of us. The masks do nothing. Nothing. I work with a doctor. He will tell you they do nothing. It's theater and control. That's all it is. A mandate, like everyone else said, is not a law. In Florida, if you look at what Governor DeSantis is doing, the schools are doing the opposite of what he's doing. So if they're doing the opposite, why aren't we? Why aren't we doing the opposite? Why are we saying, no, we're not going to comply? We're going to make masks optional. If you want to put your kid in a mask, by all means, put your kid in a mask. But my 7th grader shouldn't have to choose because he wants to go to school to be with his friends. But we don't know that we're going to send him. He shouldn't have to make that decision in 7th grade. He should be able to go in without a mask on his face. And if you can go to a restaurant and sit and eat, why can't our children sit down in their desks and take their masks off? Where is the science behind that? And I would like to know what happens if our kids do go to school and don't wear their mask.
That will also be answered.
That will be answered?
Yes,
Okay.
no problem.
Okay. Yeah, that's really all I have to say.
All
Thank
right.
you for, thank
Thank
you.
you, Mrs. Kukowski. At this time, I'd like our board attorney to please explain the difference between a mandate and an executive order. Do you want to do that at the end? Okay, so after all the comments, she'll explain the difference. Next, please. Yes, please.
Hi.
Hi.
My name is Lauren Molyneux. I live on Woodland Road in Forked River. I have a daughter who is going into 10th grade, and I graduated myself in 1995 from Lacey High School and moved back to this town to raise my daughter. I'm trying to say our children are our priority and our future. Masks, vaccines, and curriculum are just 3 examples of the larger picture of what's going on. And my question is, how far are you willing to go forward with a government agenda of greed, power, and control? Blatantly, it goes against we the people's freedom of choice, okay? The constitutional rights, the US human rights, are freedoms. When we get down to where the freedom of religion is, it's not even applicable at this point. We have freedom of expression, which is the ability for the speech, media, and public assembly. Our voices are being censored. The information is being censored. We know this from all of the platforms that are out there that are controlled by that same government agenda of power, greed, and control. Facebook, YouTube, everything else. We can't access the truth the way we should. And we should all be able to have the information for both sides to be able to make an informed consent, an informed decision. And we don't have that right now. We have the right to peacefully assemble, but it's also up to that power, control, and greed to decide whether or not we are peacefully assembling and when to release the police, arrest us, or decide it's no longer peaceful. We don't get that decision. Again, they have the power and control to decide. Movement. Basically, that's about relocation when it comes to constitutional rights, but when it comes to association, it's about coming together in groups for political action or to pursue common interest, and that's what we the people are trying to do now. We're looking for the information, the facts that we can't find that are being censored, and we're finding them out for ourselves. And we are connecting via the internet and in person so that because we've been doing that research and we're connecting with other like-minded individuals who can see the blatant logic and reason that we, the people, have on our side and that government is losing. The grand illusion is coming down from that 3-ring circus that we call the government. It is shifting from a democracy to a communism. And it's about us asking, when are you guys gonna wake up to that bigger picture and see where we're fighting for? Okay? Because now what comes after that is the right of a revolution. And what a revolution is, a duty of a nation to overthrow a government that acts against their common interests. And if they're forcing us against our will, and they're taking our parental rights away from us, okay, then what's left for us? It's for us to finally have the revolution and take back the power of we the people and our okay? We can't fight against what we want. You know, we have to fight for what we want, because if we fight against, we're just gonna get more to fight against. We don't want any more further division, segregation, or alienation from one another. We're looking to unite. We want to fight for, separate ourselves from the government, from that greed and the power and the control, because we are the people. We want to unite to prove, preserve, and protect our human rights, the ones that our founding fathers in those documents supposedly had granted us. But see, without us having the revolution, no matter how much we speak our mind, no matter how much we fight again, they have the laws protecting them. It's got to go to this court, and it's got to go to this court, to the point where it might have to go to the UN. Because I don't even see where we have freedom of choice listed in those documents, except when it comes to abortion. Choice doesn't matter for us at this point. This is where we get clustered into the original indoctrination of what we've all gone through our education system. And we've got to start to see the power and control over our kids, our minds, and their mindsets, because they are being misled instead of led in the right direction. And it's about time we parents have woken up and realized we need to fight for our future by fighting for our children, by waking ourselves up first and standing up, using our voices, setting examples for our children, instead of bending over and taking another one where it doesn't belong. You aren't exempt from the effects of this government-run agenda either. You're still either we the people or you're part of the agenda. That's your decision to make. This is an opportunity for us to make a difference in the world for our children, and we're not seeing it. I wish we had more of us here. I wish that I knew more than just Regina DeSenza, because you know what? Through Cedar Creek and everything as a PTA, you were always there seeing our children.
Would you mind coming back up after the rest of the comments?
I would love to. That'd be
Okay,
great.
thank you. Okay, no problem.
My name is Rocco Davino. I live in 2144 Hollywood Drive. I have just recently graduated from Mill Pond, and I'm here to address a couple problems that I have with the masks. To start off, I'm having issues with conversing with my peers. Every conversation feels plain. I can't see how my peers feel. I want to see their emotions when I'm talking to them. Even with my sister, ever since this started, her social emotional growth has just completely failed. She cannot see the facial expressions, and she cannot understand what we are saying and how we feel when we are saying it. To sum this up, I only have 3 words to say. Please unmask us.
Thank you. Thank you, Rocco. Would anybody else like to speak? Rocco, you did an awesome job. Thank you.
Amanda Biron, 208 Lakeview Court, Forked River. I'd like to start off with reading a short little petition that I put together this week. On Friday, August 6th, Governor Murphy announced that masks will be required for New Jersey children grades K through 12 for the start of the 2021 school year. Our children have spent the summer enjoying activities with family and friends mask-free. They have seen life return to normal in our community. Parents and children have started pulling the hardships of last school year behind them and now remain racked with anxiety with the new school year that approaches. This is a complete pivot from what parents were told less than 2 months ago, and as recently as early as last week from the governor's office. In New Jersey alone, in the past 12 months, while tragic, only 3 children have sadly passed with COVID. To require such a major disruption and inhibition of a child's social, emotional, physical, and educational environment for such a minimal risk is confounding, to say the least. In New Jersey, our children are being subjected to the most stringent guidelines of any other group in the state. There is a growing concern that parents are losing their rights to do what's best for their children. We must stand up as parents, as in a community, and say enough is enough. Parents and caregivers, not the government, are responsible for making decisions about our own children's health and safety. Parents must have the option to consider all the available evidence and the vast array of concerns beyond one discrete virus when making these decisions. So we demand the option to make our own decisions as to whether our children should wear a mask to school or not. As of tonight, there are over 900 signatures on this petition, and I will be forwarding this to your emails tomorrow. In conjunction with that, as some previous people have stated, the mandate, the executive order, is not law. And there are other communities in other states who are going against what their governor is saying. Just so you know, Louisiana, Arkansas, and Mississippi, I've looked at a bar chart, and I will forward this to you as well. Louisiana reinstated mask mandates only 2 weeks ago and is doing far worse with COVID numbers than Arkansas and Mississippi, who are not mandating masks be worn in schools. So the state where the masks are being mandated to be worn is doing worse in cases than the 2 states that are not. While I appreciate the letter that went from Ms. Board President to the governor, again, just as the other gentleman stated, your bold statement, which was, as always, our district will operate in compliance with all mandates. You guys work for us. And if we don't want that, then you need to do what we want you to do. So that statement just discredited the whole letter. I was so excited that the letter was sent, and I was reading it, and when I got to that last sentence, it was like the biggest, ugh. Like you just took the wind. It was like you just did it just to appease us and quiet, so that we'll be quiet and we'll just go ahead and comply. That's not going to happen, I can guarantee you. I don't know if you guys know or not, but there is an active lawsuit against the governor, the head of the health department, and the head of the Department of Education. Brian Afrin is the attorney. He asked for a $50,000 flat fee to represent everyone in this state who wants to be included in this lawsuit. And because of donations on GoFundMe, he's exceeded his $50,000 requirement. So not only is there 100 parent names specifically mentioned in this lawsuit, he's now asking for each individual school district to come on board and state their name in this lawsuit. His name is Bruce Afrin. I believe they're calling the lawsuit Free NJ Students. And BRIC has been totally on board with this. There's other schools right within our local region who is on board with getting their name mentioned, stated in this lawsuit. And that's what we want of Lacey Township. We want our township mentioned in that lawsuit. especially since you guys have all said that no one disagrees that masks should be optional.
Ms. Barone, can you come back up after
Sure,
everybody else?
thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, you dropped some.
You dropped your phone charger.
Would anybody else like to speak at this time?
So,
Your name, please.
oh, I'm sorry, Jay Buteau, Lacey Road, Amber Lake. So, I'm sitting up there and I'm looking down here at everyone. And it didn't really dawn on me until I saw all the masks up here, how bad it really is for these kids. I couldn't tell who was talking. And then I started thinking of Deadpool and Wolverine, where he has no mouth. And I'm starting to think of the psychological
Excuse me, we
damage.
can't hear you and them at the same, I'm sorry. Could you just wait a minute? Can't.
Well, his time is wasted.
We require for you, you gotta respect them.
Did you stop my time?
We stopped your time, go ahead.
So, yeah, I started thinking about that character, and I started thinking of the psychological damage that it's doing to everybody. Not even kids, just everybody. This is a mess. And then I started thinking, well, if you're really on board with us, why are you wearing your mask right now? None of us were coming in here with a mask no matter what. If you wanted to wear a mask because you feel that's safe for you, totally understandable. That's not the problem. But for those of you up here who are totally against it and are with us, why are you wearing them? That's one of the major questions. Secondly, a child reminded me of this, and it floored me. This is your bullying policy. Acts of harassment, intimidation, or bullying shall also be defined as one student exercising power and control over another student. Why are we letting one man control us? What message are we sending our kids about bullying if we're going to sit here and allow one man to control this whole state? Our 40 elected officials, our 20 Senate members don't do nothing. They haven't revoked his power. They allow one man to control everything. That is the definition of a tyrant. And what I want to see happen, and what I'm sure a lot of people in this room want to see happen, is that there is civil disobedience coming from this board. Because our kids are not coming in this school with masks on this year. Right here, I printed out, is a exemption form that parents can fill out. All right? Now, in Texas, the governor said there won't be any masks. So the school decided to make it a dress code that they have to wear a mask. Why can't we do something like that? Why can't we make it a dress code that they can't wear a mask? Why can't we do these things? Why can't we have a religious exemption? We don't want these masks on our face. It's against our religion. All right? So I don't want to hear sugarcoating and, we're on your side and all that stuff. I want to start seeing civil disobedience. And you know what? If your job is on the line, then so be it. Because you know how many nurses quit their job this year? You know how many teachers walked out? Bus drivers quit. Truck drivers parked their truck. Tyson food plant workers walked out. It's time for civil disobedience, and it's time. The time is now. We're not going to have a country left if we don't start doing something here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bertel. Would anybody else like to speak?
I just have a real quick question, real broad question. There's not, like, if my son,
Okay, we're gonna,
no, I'm just,
would you like to go back to the podium? Okay, after her, you may go back.
No, but he has to wait till, did he already speak?
He did.
He has to wait till everybody else.
Just wait for everybody else.
He has to wait for everybody else.
Your name,
I
please?
just have a couple questions.
Your name, please.
Sure. Katie O'Neill. My address is my personal and private information, just like my decision to wear a mask or not is my personal and private decision.
Do you live in Lacey Township?
My son will be going into 2nd grade. I went K through 12 in Lacey and graduated in '99.
Thank you.
So I have 2 questions. The first question is, what is being done to create an option for full-time virtual?
And that'll be answered for you at the
Okay,
end. Yep.
because that's going to be a huge determining factor whether or not a lot of parents send their kids back to school or not, or do homeschooling. The other question is, say now there's this mask mandate, what if happens November, all of a sudden there's no mask mandate? If someone was homeschooling their child, are they going to have the option to go back into public schools after the mandate's dropped? Those are 2 really big questions that a lot of parents, I think, need to know before the school year starts, which is obviously really soon.
Okay, thank you. Would anybody like to speak for the first time? Okay, you'll go next.
how you doing? Bill
Wonderful.
Madden, live on Chelsea Street. With the psychological stuff, I have a son that's 15, going into high school, daughter that's 12, and another daughter is 5. Father's Day, I spent in crisis center with my son, and the psychological effect it's doing on all my kids is too much to bear. So my kids will not comply. I will take whatever consequence happens, and I really don't care what happens. So they're not going to comply. My 5-year-old already knows she's not putting a mask on, and we'll see what happens. And let alone everybody else too. This is killing everybody. The masks are just ridiculous. So that's it.
Thank you.
Joseph Schinder, Bob White Court, Forked River. Hello, my name is Joseph Schinder. I'm a wrestler for Lacey, and I have been around the country for wrestling. In this COVID year, I have traveled more than I ever have. I've been to places such as Oklahoma, Florida 3 times, South Carolina, Pennsylvania multiple times, New York State and City, Virginia, Maryland, and multiple tournaments in New Jersey too. I've only gotten COVID once, which was at Universal Studios, where we double masked on the plane and had to wear a mask everywhere we went. But at every other event I've been to, we had no masks and I didn't get sick. Now, I don't know if anyone else got sick, but I know nobody was hospitalized. All of these events had thousands of unmasked people too, in convention centers at one time. Now, I'd just like to ask the question, since when was it illegal to get sick? Why are we so scared of a virus with a 99% survival rate? Getting sick Getting sick is a part of life. Obviously, nobody wants to get sick, but it happens, and people need to realize that. As a kid, I am more afraid of the stomach virus that comes around every year than COVID. Overall, I'm just trying to say that we don't need masks in school this year.
Thank you, Joseph. Anybody else would like to speak for the first time around? Okay, sir?
I forgot, maybe got in my head, listening to these guys talk. If my son.
Ed Richardson?
Yeah, Ed Richardson, 607 Sunrise.
Yes.
If my son is in impeccable shape, right, he runs around his high school twice a day and probably around, so when he comes here, am I assured, if he comes here, if he complies? I mean, this is all, because I gotta know that you guys are gonna at least attempt, like actually do the right thing for my kid, for all these kids. Are there gonna be, is there gonna be anyone trying to tell them to get vaccinated in the school? Is there gonna be a nurse? Is there gonna be like a little meeting for them that we're not gonna be aware of? Or are we gonna know everything?
Dr. Clark can answer that when we answer
Okay.
the questions.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, thank you very much. And who wanted to come back or up? Go ahead, please.
Lauren Molyneux. All right, so the first part of that was as we the people. I've also been a registered nurse for 21 years. And pretty much everything that Fauci has said, well, it's the opposite of what's true. That'd also be lies, also known as lies. So collectively, the government has been lying to us, withholding the information. But I had a few other questions when we get specifically to our children related to the masks. And that is, when you wrote that letter, and you did end it, Dr. Clark, with that bold statement, I have to tell you, I felt like you conceded before the fight. And because other letters that we've all been reading from different townships where they don't have that kind of last bold statement, I mean, it just gave a lot away. So what happens if you don't comply? What happens to each of you? What is stopping you? What are your barriers from fighting and becoming part of We the People rather than the agenda? Where are your personal boundaries with this? Where is it where you get your little fire lit inside and decide to stand with us and protect our children and realize this is more? What happens when he passes a law that all the teachers have to be vaccinated? You're putting us, they're putting the line between us, and we're choosing which side we want to be on. And we're choosing our choice, the freedom of choice. We're not against the people who want to wear masks, we just want the choice. And it's coming to the point where they're restricting that. So that's really my heartfelt expression here, is where we have the limitations, and it goes on to continuation of you guys to speak on behalf of us and our children. Where are you in this? Where are your heart lies? Where is
Dr. Clark will answer questions at the end.
Okay. Really, that's the main thing. It's just where are we united versus divided, and how do we get united?
Okay, thank you very much.
Amanda Biron, 208 Lakeview Court. So I just want to piggyback what she said there. I also want to ask, will the Lacey Township teachers and administration be participating in the NJEA Rewards Program presentation that was given yesterday for the vaccine push to indoctrinate our children and try and get the ones who say they're not going to get the vaccine to try and convince them to get it, and that rewards will be given for those teachers. So that's one thing. Another thing I wanted to mention was, there are a lot of statistics, and I can flood you guys with emails. I know you said you already got a lot, and if I need to flood you with statistics, I will. Has anyone looked at the data for dental problems and gut problems, because I have researched certain things, and dental issues in the past year, especially in children, but at adults as well, dental issues have risen over 500% because of mask wearing. Because when you wear the mask, especially for a child, and it's not just going to be 7 hours, because they're also going to be on the bus for a half an hour in the morning and a half an hour in the afternoon, maybe, on average. And they may also have to go to before or after care at the school, which is additional hours. So when you mask up, you're actually changing the chemical composition and the biome in your mouth. You're not making the proper saliva, you're not making the proper amounts of acids and other things, and your mouth is not the proper pH anymore. So the food that you're ingesting, you're not breaking it down in your mouth like it's supposed to start. And there are so many cavities and so many gum problems that are starting to happen. In addition to that, gut problems are also on the rise. And in case you didn't know, 85% of your immune system is in your gut. 85%. So if your gut's off balance because you're breathing in the carbon dioxide and because your mouth is all off, you're going to start having problems in your gut. And if you don't, then that's great, and kudos to you. But this is being researched right now, but you're not going to hear about this in mainstream media. So if my child comes up with a dental problem or a gut problem, I'm sorry, you guys are going to be held responsible, because my children do not have any issues, health issues whatsoever. They haven't even been to a doctor in over 10 years and have not had one issue. That's where I'll end it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Brown. Mr. Schinder?
Okay, so,
Mr. Schinder?
Mr. Schinder, BOE Court, Forked River. Like I said, I wasn't prepared to talk on this earlier, but our hands are tied kind of thing, and there's no recourse to doing anything but complying with the mandate. Obviously, several districts have sent letters. So just two things I'd like to talk about. One, has there been any thought of banding together with other districts that feel the way that we supposedly do, and possibly coming together in multiple groups and defying the mandate? And beyond that, if you have to adhere to the mandate, I guess I have 5 minutes again?
Yes, you do.
Okay. Middle Township, K through 12, right on their website. I will email this to all of you. They talk about the mandate and the different parts of the executive order, and then they break it down. And first one is, when doing so would inhibit an individual's health, such as when the individual is exposed to extreme heat indoors. The district shall accept an individual or parental testimony letter as evidence that wearing a mask inhibits an individual's health. Any such letter must describe how wearing a mask specifically affects the individual or student. General statistics or assertions about mask wearing are not acceptable. The district shall accept correspondence from an individual's healthcare provider without being subject to the district's physician for review that wearing a face mask inhibits the individual's health. The current heat exception shall continue until significant change in weather. And then it goes on to the part where Murphy talks about trouble breathing. Trouble breathing means documented difficulty breathing from a healthcare provider or parental testimony specifying how the child has difficulty breathing. Trouble breathing also means a medical diagnosis of asthma, allergies, breathing problems, anxiety resulting in breathing issues, which are exacerbated by wearing a face mask. And again, this goes on. I'll email this to all of you. But that right there is your blueprint. I would rather see you flat out defy him, but if you're not going to defy him, then at least give us the opportunity to write on behalf of our children that we do not want to mask them.
Thank you, Mr. Schinder.
Hello, Stacy Davino, Rocco's mom. I'm 2144 Hollywood Drive. I just have a few things to say when it comes to the mask wearing for our kids. You heard Rocco speak earlier. He also didn't explain that he had major anxiety issues. This is a kid that's very outgoing, gifted and talented, straight A student, every club you can imagine. He's been going through a lot, just like the other students, and he's also observed his little sister, my daughter. She's entering kindergarten, and because of all the shutdowns, she has suffered. She just turned 5, and she is considered on the spectrum now. She has no social and emotional skills. The masks scare her. She doesn't know. Everybody looks like this. You know, she doesn't know if you're happy, if you're sad. If you're angry, she doesn't know the difference. So she'll laugh if somebody says, I'm angry. She's like, angry. She doesn't know. How is she going to learn if she goes? The question I do have is, I know there was a guideline in the new executive order saying something about if they have an IEP. Are you going to automatically change everyone's IEP to say no mask? Because a lot of these children, they don't have the social and emotional skills. They don't know how to learn otherwise. So you're going to take a kid that has a disability and treat them like a second-class citizen. You know, and that's what's happening to our children. You're supposed to be inclusive and give a damn about our children. No. I'm not going to put any mask on either one of my children. And they're not going to get vaccinated, no matter what you say. I know more people that have died from this vaccine than it died from the disease itself. My family is autoimmune. I'm autoimmune. My husband is autoimmune. We had COVID. It ran through our house. My husband was sick 3 days. I was sick 2 days. That was it. We were fine. You know why? We stayed home, we exercised, we ate healthy. When they said, oh, you can eat fast food. You can go to the bar, get some alcohol. We said, nah, we'll stay home. We'll grow our own food. We'll do what we have to and exercise. We're healthy. We're fine. He's in better shape, my husband, than he's been in years. And, you know, that's because we're taking care of ourselves. And we're not wearing the mask. I'm not going to wear the mask. I want to breathe. My kids need to breathe. Their kids need to breathe. And we're just asking for you to please work with us. You know, do what we need to help our children become children. We don't want them to be little soldiers and do what they're told to do, sit in a corner, be fed garbage, and grow like a little mushroom. You know, that's kind of what you're doing. They're feeding us crap and expecting us to flourish, and we're not going to. And we're not going to take it. So, on behalf of everyone here, I want a choice. They want a choice, and that's it. You know, we have a choice to take our kids out of school, because I know, isn't there more funding for schools if you have more children that go? And that determines your budget. So before October, I believe, we have to determine whether or not our students are going to be enrolled and whether or not your budget's going to be as robust as you would expect it to be. We don't want to do that. We don't want to bankrupt the school system. We don't want to do it because we want all of our children to go to school together and have fun, just like we did. You know, we just ask you to please, you know, work with us. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Zavino. Okay. At this time, if there's, yes, go ahead. And at the end of public comment, we'll close it, and Dr. Clark will answer the questions.
Jay Buto, Lacey Road, Bamber. I came up before.
Yes.
So real quick, I just want to let you know, I did go to the Lacey Township meeting, and I went to the Ocean County meeting. They feel the same way we do. Ocean County asked me to give them a copy of that lawsuit that Amanda was talking about. So they have a copy of it. They also have a copy of every town and school board that has wrote letters against this. Just wanted to give you the information about it, so if you guys want to join forces and, you know, make something happen here. And it's the only way it's going to happen is if we join forces.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brutal. Okay, last call. Go ahead.
Good evening, everybody. Just wanted to say thank you to everybody. I know it's been a rough couple of years between Murphy's Cuts and COVID. Dee Bahujan, Forked River, Center
Okay,
Street.
I was just gonna,
I had a question for Mr. Zelinski. Is he's still the COVID czar this year?
all questions, direct them to me, please, and
Okay.
thank you.
I was just wondering if we could get the numbers, COVID cases during the regular school year when children wore masks versus extended school year where there were no masks because of the excessive heat. I know the population is different, that's why I'm asking for the percentage. If you could come up with
Do you
those
want to
numbers.
provide it at the August 30th meeting, Mr. Zelinski?
I have the numbers for extended school year.
You
and
have them
for,
right now?
In Richmond.
Okay, please.
Not here. I have to get them for you.
Right, so
Okay.
we'll get them
I
for
know off the
the,
top of my head, but it'll be wrong. So.
for the August 30 meeting. You're welcome. It's going to, it's not, it's a special meeting to hire new personnel and to do the strategic plan and the road to recovery.
Yes, to answer your question, it's going to be advertised in accordance with the law next week.
Next week, it'll be advertised next week, is that what you said?
That's the fastest we can do it.
I'm just making sure that's what you said, because I couldn't hear you. Thank you.
Yes, and it will
next
be
week.
August 30th, 6 o'clock here.
Okay. And that's a private session first, and then the public session, or it's just one meeting?
One meeting.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, I'd like to close public session. Public comment, yes. Okay, and at this time, Dr. Clark is going to answer the questions that all of you were asking.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Taken more notes than I did in 5 years of college. All right, actually, first, I'm going to ask Ms. Dev, can you explain the difference between a mandate and an executive order, just to get us started? No, you can't?
Well, the mandate and the executive order are hand in hand. They're one and the same. Sorry, can you hear me now? I wasn't talking into the microphone. Mandate, executive order, law, they all are the same legal terminology. They are laws that need to be followed, and so for purposes of the conversation that Dr. Clark is going to have, they're going to mean the same thing.
Okay, thank you. All right, can everybody hear me? Okay. So first up, I want to start by thanking all of you for coming out and for being so respectful. I've heard about other board meetings not going that way, and so I want to thank you first for being here and applauding you for the level of respectfulness that you've shown us, the research that you've brought to us. And I'm also going to start by saying that there's a reason why our road forward plan hasn't been presented, because we are waiting for guidance to change. Do I expect that it's going to change? I can't answer that. I am hopeful that it's going to change, and then that will guide us in a different direction. Now, there's quite a few questions here. You know, a lot of you talked about defying the governor and banding with you. One of the questions asked is, have I spoken to my colleagues? Yes, I have. In fact, I had a meeting just the day before yesterday. OCASA stands for the Ocean County Association for Superintendents. There's about 30 of us. Our executive board, I am the vice president. We met with the county office to talk about, and by the way, we have a meeting on Tuesday, to talk about, you know, what is going on in Ocean County. Now, there are a lot of things going on beyond Ocean County, but there's 30 of us here in Ocean County, and I'm concerned more about what's going on in Lacey and Ocean County than I am beyond, because we can't control everything. With that said, there are lots of conversations about what other school districts are doing, and I can tell you that as of 2 days ago, the information that I'm sharing with you is the information that they're sharing with their school community. I am not aware of what just happened in Middletown, but if you email that to us, we will certainly take a look at it. You know, what has been typical is when we have board meetings like this and the public comes out and makes the comments that they make and is so vocal, it makes us pause. It does. And so now we have to take the information, we have to digest it, and we have to take a look at what's going on in Middletown. Again, wasn't aware. And we have to see, you know, these board meetings that are taking place, Are superintendents going in a different direction? I don't have the answer to that right now. But here's what I can tell you, is that yes, we do have this executive order, and there are things in this executive order that is a little different than previous executive orders. I'm not gonna speak to the intent, I am not Governor Murphy. But one of the things that, and I'm hoping that you have all read the executive order cover to cover like we have, like I have. There's very explicit language in here. Thank you, I'm glad you did. There's very explicit language in here, explicit and strong language that says, it shall be the duty of every person or entity in this state or doing business in this state, blah, 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 and of each member and all governmental bodies, agencies, and authorities in the state of any nature whatsoever to cooperate fully in all matters concerning this order. That's not such strong language. The next part of it is strong language, and it says that penalties for violations of this order may be imposed under, among other things, statutes NJSA A9-49. So, you know, I've done due diligence because I have a responsibility to report to the board, and, you know, we looked up that statute, and that too is some pretty strong language that says individuals who are alleged to have violated the governor's order are also exposed to additional charges such as disorderly offenses, fines, imprisonment, and that's not anything that we would ever be a part of because, and I use this example sometimes, think about the executive order when we're placed in a state of emergency because we got 24 inches of snow. And the executive order, state of emergency, says you will not go out and drive your car. And if you go out and drive your car, you're going to get a ticket. And if you go out and drive your car again, you're going to lose your license. Now, that may or may not be a good example, but it's an example of an executive order. Now, with all of that said, there's a reason why our plan hasn't been completed and hasn't been published, because we are waiting to the last possible minute to see that if there are changes. Now, some of you may agree or not agree with the language that Mrs. McAvoy and we included in our letter, but it is a letter very similar to other letters that other districts have published. It's not identical, but it says in essence that we will comply with mandates because we are required to do so. So that's what I wanted to say about that. Now I want to address some of the questions. So I'm going to try and read them in the order that I wrote them down. So the first question, well, the first thing I wrote down is to see what Middletown has just announced. The second question that I wrote down is, what happens if my child goes to school without a mask? I don't have an answer for you right here, right now, because we're still working on those protocols. So I'm sorry that I don't have an answer, but we will, and we're gonna hope to share those protocols as early as next week. What is the protocol if a child gets sick? I'm not, Mr. Richardson, I'm not sure what you meant by that question.
If a child gets sick, what happens to the kids in the school itself, like last year?
Okay.
Remember?
Yes, I think I understand. So,
Do you want me to-
just, and Mr. Do you want to answer that?
in?
Yes, please.
So that hasn't changed from in the last 18 months. It's still, we draw the circle around that student, and if you're 6 feet or for more than 15 minutes, you go on quarantine. All right, that hasn't changed. All right.
Like last year, when, I mean, it went like domino effect. I mean, I know you.
It can still happen like that.
Right, so that's.
That is correct. So a student gets sick in a classroom, if it's a classroom where we can contact trace appropriately, and I call it robust contact tracing because we have teachers who keep an eye out, we have other methodologies. The rule is still, if you're within 6 feet of an individual with a confirmed case of COVID-19 for more than 15 minutes, you go on quarantine. Now, the quarantines change by what color we are in the state of New Jersey. All right, we turned from yellow to orange today. So our region is the only region that went orange today because the cases are getting that much worse. So we went from 10 days to a 14-day quarantine just today. So any person who gets COVID, so we went up, we went way up. Okay, so our region went way up just today. So now we went from a 10-day quarantine to a 14-day quarantine. All right, so that never changed. Okay, just the days change by what color we are based on the county. Correct. So we're notified of that every Thursday. So every Thursday they tell us our color. Today's the first day we're orange.
Okay, another question that I wrote down, and I think I got the question right, is what happens if there is no mask mandate, say come November, and a child has been homeschooled? Can the child go back to school? Well, we accept homeschooled children all the time. So for example, and let's talk pre-COVID. A parent will write to us and say, in October, that they've decided to homeschool their child. They have that right. And they'll get a letter from me that says, we acknowledge your choice to homeschool and I usually send an FAQ out from the Department of Education. And in my letter, I say that if at some point later on you decide that you want to re-enroll your child, to please make an appointment with the building principal. And depending on how much time has passed, we will run an assessment just to see where the child is, or we'll ask parents to provide a portfolio, just so that we can make sure that the child's in a proper placement. So that would be the same. So that's the answer to that question. The question I wrote, is there anyone who's going to talk to our kids about vaccines?
That was my question as well. I don't want anybody talking to my son about getting vaccines, anything.
I know, we're not having the back and forth.
Right, right, okay, thank you. But I just wanted to understand the question. So it's not
right now.
back and forth. I have to address the question, so just.
It's part of the question.
I understand the question.
Okay.
So the question is there anybody that's going to have a conversation about vaccines? So we just received guidance, or actually we just heard that the governor is going to make an announcement about vaccines tomorrow. So I don't think I can speak to that, but right now there is a section in our plan that we're required to talk about vaccines, but we're not finished with it yet. So it's not anything that I can speak to.
It's much more that there's a knowledge of vaccines. It's not about
Okay, hold on.
about
This
telling
is not-
that it's good or bad.
This is
But
not
that's
a
still
back
a
and
work in
forth.
progress. Right, excuse me.
Okay, please, we want to be respectful of each other, everyone. Okay, we're trying to be respectful.
Everybody's job's on the line. Your jobs are all.
Excuse me, sir. Sir, I'm asking you to stop. Sir, I'm asking you to stop.
You know what, this is so
Sir, I'm asking you to stop or please leave. Go ahead, can you answer the questions?
Yeah, last question. Any thought of banding together and defying the mandate? So I just told you that I had a meeting last Tuesday. We have a meeting next Tuesday. And I am going to pay very much going to pay attention to the dialogue and the conversations that are being had to see where are we going with this, okay? Including what just happened in Middletown. I don't see.
Excuse me, sir, we had public comment. Excuse me, sir, please be respectful. Sir, please be respectful. Sir, I'm asking you to be respectful. Public comment is over. At this time, we will go into committee reports.
Public comment is over.
I know. Excuse me. Could you please repeat it, Mrs. Brown?
I want to know if any of the teachers in this district are going to participate in the rewards program that the NEA just came out with yesterday. That's my flat-out question. Either they are participating or they're not.
Right.
That's what I want to know.
I missed that question and I apologize. I don't know. I don't know. I don't have an answer for you right now. I will know. I just don't know it right now.
Okay, excuse me. We are going to come back August 30th, and we are going to have as much information as we can. Thank you. Okay, at this time, we are going to go into committee reports. Yes, please. At this time, we'll have Mrs. Downing and curriculum. Okay. We'll take 2 minutes.
They came here saying that we give them masks and we were all very careful.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we're in number 11, committee reports. We're going to start with Mrs. Downing and curriculum, please.
Okay, so we had
Yes, we did. Public comment's over, sir. Mrs. Downing, curriculum, please.
Okay, curriculum meeting was on August 10th. Present was myself, Mrs. McAvoy, Mr. Polino, and Dr. Clark. We reviewed the student handbooks and programs of studies that we are voting on tonight on the agenda, or we voted on, and our attorney reviewed them. We also had a discussion about an assessment that will be given between September 13th and October 22nd, entitled the Start Strong Assessments. It's just a very short 1 hour math, 1 hour language arts, and sixth grade will take science, as well as grades 9 and 12 will be doing the science. Since there was no testing last year, per se, like the park, or what we call NJSLA now, this is going to give us, give the school districts a guideline of where the students are to start now, so they can move on and put in programs in place that need to be put in. So it's going to be a very short, not like the standardized tests that you're used to. It'll be done in 1 or 2 days. ESSER 2 and ESSER 3, we voted tonight on staff members that were covered by this grant. Let's see, what else? The Chromebooks, they finally arrived to the district, so everyone will have a Chromebook. And there's a program in the high school called Trout in the Classroom. So we had chickens before, and now we have trout. Trout in the Classroom, Dr. Clark led a discussion about a program that will take place in the high school under the leadership of science teacher Karen Hobson. Trout in the Class is a science-based program that teaches students about the importance of cold water conservation through a hands-on approach to learning. So it sounds like a really interesting program that we're providing for our students in the high school. Everything else we discussed tonight or voted on tonight, that's about it. Mrs. McAvoy, I almost called you Dr. McAvoy.
Okay, thank you, Doctor. And now, next, Mr. Scanlon, please, for finance.
Finance, and first, a quick word on negotiations. Negotiations are moving along with LTEA. We're finishing up phase 1, which is the language, and getting ready to discuss financial matters. And the LCST those negotiations have moved on to mediation. As far as facilities go, just to hit the highlights here, facilities HVAC projects funded by the ESSER grant money include 5 of the 6 schools where we'll be doing, HVAC projects, which is heat and air conditioning. And repair of the Mill Pond School parking lot and sidewalks. Finance, $200,000 of IDEA grant was awarded through the American Recovery Act, and we'll be working on the proper use of those funds, and an interlocal agreement with the township, providing the township with the use of equipment and services of our tech personnel to record their meetings has been completed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Scanlon. And Mr. Peters, policy, please.
We spoke about policy 0131, bylaw of policies and regulations that was revised. We spoke about policy 121, educational improvement plan, which was abolished because we have a new plan going in there. 1649, Federal Families First Corona Response Act was abolished. Career and technical education was revised, and then vocational technical education was abolished. That was 2421. Policy number 3134, assignment of extra duties, was revised. Policy 5460-02, it's a new bridge year pilot program. And the road back is no longer applicable. We're working on something else right now. And then that was it.
Thank you.
Hang on 1 second.
Yep.
I'm sorry. It was myself, Ms. Klaus, and Ms. McAvoy. Ms. Regina DeSantis was unavailable to make it. And we had a long, lengthy discussion about 251, which was discussed tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Peters. At this time, we have a Google Doc form that we have a parent that wrote some questions in, so we're going to read her questions, please. Mr. DeGeorge? Oh, Mr. Zelinski, do you have the questions?
Do you have, I have the questions.
Yeah,
Okay.
Okay, Dr. Clark will read the
them.
questions.
I could-
Okay.
I could easily ask.
And
And again-
to clarify, can you explain how these were submitted as part of?
Mr. DeGeorge can do
Okay.
that.
Yeah, sure. Again, as if you're here for the first part of our meeting, the board has, since COVID, made available a Google Doc platform that sometime between the time the agenda is published on our website and 3 p.m. that day, questions can be submitted through that platform instead of, here at the meeting. So these, yeah, right. And by the way, as we're sitting here, there will be something more tomorrow morning. Believe me, I'm tired of looking at it. But these are some questions that were submitted.
Okay, and you'll start the timer, please.
I will.
Okay.
All right. Mr. Zelinski and I are going to answer these questions. So the first question is, with virtual no longer an option, what option do parents have if they do not want to send their kids to school in a face mask and or if there are too many protocols in place? So the only option would be homeschool, and we talked about that earlier. Second question, will there still be dividers on the desk even though the children are not able to see through them to see their teachers and the blackboard? And the answer to that is we are not planning on using dividers. We are going to try to social distance as much as possible. Will there be recess? Yes.
Then you go to, will there be lunch in a cafeteria, and will children be able to socialize with each other? Yes, they'll of course be able to socialize with each other. Cafeteria plans are still being worked out. There'll be some mixing. Some of the elementaries will probably do lunch in the classroom in some cases, but we're trying our best to get them in the cafeterias. But they are serving lunch.
How will the school be penalized if you make masks optional despite Governor Murphy's order, Department of Health, and Department of Education stating otherwise? I talked about that earlier. I read you the section of the executive order, and then I read to you what the possible ramifications could be. Next question, who will be held liable for the physical and psychological damage that wearing masks is doing to children? We don't have an answer to that question at the moment. Next question, do you have data that provides proof in which masks benefit the children or a district physically and medically? Next question, do you have proof that masks cause no harm to the students emotionally, physically, developmentally, and cognitively? Next question, do you have a study that shows that communication between kids, teachers, and peers has not adversely affected by masks? So I read all three of those questions because the answer to that is there is data and research that supports both sides of the argument, so that's nearly impossible to answer.
And the next question was, do you have proof that children with 504s and IEPs have not declined in learning this year? I won't know that until we give the Start Strong assessments and our NWEA standardized testing in September. And then we can assess where they ended up and then where they are now in September, and we'll get a gauge for how they did last year with it being, of course, a strange year.
Next question, are parents able to submit notes on behalf of their children exempting them from face-to-face coverings due to difficulty breathing, excessive heat, and or if it inhibits their health? If it is not the parents making these determinations, what documentation are you requesting? So yes, there is going to be a way that we're going to have parents communicate these, and we're going to be communicating these procedures early next week. So yes, there is going to be a procedure, and next week, early next week, we will let our school community know how that is going to be done, because there are exemptions in the executive order for mask wearing.
And I'll read the next two because the plan states all students and staff will be provided training on policies to reduce the spread of COVID-19, including information on face coverings when appropriate. What if parents do not want their children trained on face coverings? And then she also asks, the plan states there will be strategies developed on an individual basis to manage students, families, and staff concerns over face coverings. What exactly is going to be done for families who have concerns regarding face coverings? She is referencing the old plan that we revised back in April. So for me to address that, it's not going to be, it could be part of the new plan, but it will be stated a lot differently because, of course, the mandates have changed and the executive orders have changed. So it's not really something I can answer right now.
Will you require parent consent for face coverings since it is a medical device and the law states that parents must consent to medical treatments? No, we will not. Will parents be given an option to not send their children in face masks? As of right now, will parents be given an option to not send their children in face masks? As of right now, the answer is no because of the executive order. Will you require parent consent for face coverings since it is a medical device and the law states that parents must consent to medical treatment? So the way I'm reading that, Rennie, the answer is no, but I'm not sure I entirely understand the question. So we're gonna get back to that. Then the last question, two more questions. I'm sorry, Mr. Zelinski.
Yeah, it's a testing question. If testing is not available, asymptomatic close contacts should self-quarantine and be monitored for a period of time after their last exposure, according to COVID-19 exclusion criteria. Is this suggesting that when students are exposed to someone who tests positive in their class or on the bus, they will be required to stay home from school? If so, for how long? How will they be provided education during this time? Are you concerned with the gaps in education that this will cause? So it's referencing the old plan, but the exclusion criteria has not changed. It's actually one of the few things that hasn't changed. We addressed that when we go from green to yellow to orange to red. The exclusion criteria changes each way. We draw that circle around a student or a staff member who has COVID-19. Anybody within that 6-foot circle will have to quarantine. The second part of the question is, I'm out of time.
Okay, and we can continue her questions on the next meeting.
Very good.
Okay, at this time, we're going to transition into board member comments. I'm going to start with Mrs. DeSenza, please.
Okay, one second. Let me find it. It's here. Okay. I would like to thank all the members of the public and parents that came forward to speak last month. While I did miss the July 15th meeting, I listened to it on YouTube as soon as I could. I have to remark that the audibility of that meeting was difficult, and I had to make the volume very high to hear it. I hope this meeting, the audibility is improved. All the points were well taken. We do hear you, and we thank you for coming forward. Tonight's agenda was very complex, and we thank you for joining us. And again, we do hear you, and we are listening. Please see the school website for the dates and times of upcoming orientations. The Mill Pond orientation will be August 25th, and it will be split into 2 sessions. August 26th is freshman orientation at the high school. August 31st is 7th grade orientation at the middle school, and that will be split into 3 sessions, so please check the website. September 14th is the college application process at the high school. And as it's been mentioned, we will be having a special meeting at the end of August on the 30th to ensure that all business is taken care of before school starts. Please watch for an announcement. And the next monthly business meeting is scheduled for Thursday, September 16th. Thank you all for being here tonight.
Thank you, Mrs. DeSenza. Mrs. Claus, please.
Sure. Good evening. Effective August 6th, Governor Murphy imposed a mandatory mask mandate in our schools. With this executive order, our governor successfully strapped the schools and parents with very little exceptions. I could not be more against taking the health decisions and control out of our parents' hands. I am for choice. I believe any decision when it comes to minors, especially medical, should come from a joint decision from a medical professional and their parents. I understand why Lacey parents and other parents in our state are fighting back. They should. We all should. Why are our students mandated to wear masks to school for 6 hours when only to leave to be able to be maskless in our restaurants and local stores? It just doesn't make sense. My statement is not about whether the virus is contagious or spreading. It's about the parents having a choice in their child's medical decisions. Last month, Dr. Granato, a licensed clinical psychologist, spoke at our board meeting. She expressed her patients are suffering with feelings of helplessness, hopelessness, depression, and anxiety. She also stated, most importantly and alarming, is the most amount of suicidal youth she has seen in her office in the past 16 months far exceeds the total number she has seen in 18 years of her private practice. This scares me. We do know now that wearing masks have been linked to negative implications such as social withdrawal, depression, isolation, and decreased ability to identify facial cues and fear, or even happiness. Again, I feel that parents and medical professionals should jointly be able to weigh all options and make decisions together. I am not against wearing masks and taking precautions, but I am for choice. On a lighter note, I'd like to wish all the students and staff a safe return next month and wish all the student athletes success in their upcoming season. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Peters.
Well, our lovely governor's literally having a glass of wine. I don't think he had to come get me, so I'm doing this. First of all, I wish these people stayed here so I can address, I'm sorry?
I said I just wish they were here watching.
Yeah.
Down the mask, we started it.
Unfortunately, they left, and I wanted to address some concerns also, but I want to talk to Jay, Morgan, Hayden, Anne Marie, Bobby Schinder, Colleen, Lauren, Rocco, Amanda, and JoJo. My name's Skip Peters. I'm a board member here, and good evening. I usually just go from the heart, but I wanted to make sure tonight that I brought the highlights out, because sometimes I walk out and like, oh, I should have said this, I should have said that. So I put it in writing, and there's some big words in here. My wife helped me out a little bit. I'm not a big word guy. Thank you for coming out tonight. Some of you may not know, I've been involved in education for over 20 years as a teacher. I saw what COVID did to staff, students. Teachers, students, and families rose to the challenge. Many exceeded expectations, especially of the Lacey staff. Some struggled, and most of them did, both did both, depending on the day, myself included as a school teacher. Personally, I am 100% against mandating masks. Masks should be the choice of families, students, and staff. But as an elected school board member, if I inform someone they don't have to wear a mask, I can lose my teaching certification and be prosecuted. The same goes for Dr. Clark. Unfortunately, our governor decided to make a decision for all school districts in the state of New Jersey and take away our local authority to base decisions on what is happening in our community instead of a law being processed through legislative. This is happening in our community, and it came down to an executive order. The state legislature gave Governor Murphy these unlimited powers. Whether we are in agreement or not, this is an executive order, and I am an elected official. It seems some of you are here tonight ask elected officials to break the law. Knowing and willingly breaking the law will put all the board members at risk to be held professionally and civilly in court. Any one of us would have to go in front of the judge, and the judge would say, you should know better, you're an elected official, and you took an oath to office. Ladies and gentlemen, you cannot ask an elected official to break the law. I've stated my opinion on masks on children. I do not speak for all board members and their opinions, but I'm on your side. If someone has something organized going to Trenton, sign me up. We need to show in big numbers and get voices heard. We need to contact the state legislators and the governor's office. 609-296-6000. Call as many times a day as you can and get your voices out there.
It's
This
292.
governor has conventionally made up his own rules throughout this pandemic and has cut our funding this year after year without disclosing the funding formula. We've asked for the formula that he used, how he comes up with the fundings, and there are schools out there getting this much money, and we're getting cut this much money. This governor has continually made up his own rules throughout this pandemic and has cut our funding years after years without disclosing the formula. Sorry, read that again. Thank you all for coming out, and I'd love to be your children's best advocate. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Downing, please.
Did she say Mrs. Downing?
I did. I'm sorry, Mrs. Downing,
I was
please.
just like listening.
Okay. Sorry.
I'm sorry, what is your first name? Hayden, that's what I thought, but I just put H instead. First of all, I'd like to thank everyone who was a part of the strategic plan. They gave up a lot of time, weekends to do that. So thank you to anyone that's here that participated and to those who are home. So a lot of work and we appreciate it. I have to say, I was listening, I was taking notes because I listen better when I take notes. Sounds crazy, but I do. And I was listening, and some of you, all of you, made some very valid points. But out of all of you, you can put all the adults out of the room. But you and you, Rocco, made such an impact on what you said. I listened to you. It was such an impact, and I give you kudos for standing up. I know it's hard, even as a high school senior, to get up here and talk. And then you have, how old is Rocco? 7th grade? 12. Amazing. So thank you. Thank you for getting up, and thank you for all of your comments. And I want to wish everyone a safe return to school. Hopefully, everything will be in place, and we can get this done as a community and get it done right.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Don.
Thank you. And Mr. Scanlon, please.
Basically, first of all, I'd like to chime in on what Mrs. Downing said with the two students who are still here who spoke. It's always nice when students speak and when they speak well. And you both did a very good job. You expressed your point of view, you said what you had to say, and you did something a lot of adults don't know how to do. You knew when to end and how to get off. Sometimes people get to that end point and it's like, oh, how do I finish this? And they kind of get stuck on that. I know I do that a lot.
There was one other boy, too.
He's not here
Yeah.
but there was another.
Right,
but it's
Joseph,
always- it's
yeah.
always-
Jojo Schinder.
It's always,
Okay.
and it always is also always good to listen to the adults. We do hear what you're saying. We're in the position where we have to follow the rules, but at the same time, we really do side with you. In the long run, it would be great to be able to open the schools and leave masks be an option. But the thing that requires from everybody too then is that people who do wear masks are not ridiculed or put upon because they've made that choice. Some of us wear a mask because for health reasons it may be important. And we are doing our best. Everybody, no matter what letter gets written, people are going to find something that they don't like about it. And I think in the letter, and I shouldn't probably speak for Dr. Clark, but the way I read that letter wasn't necessarily backing off as much as saying, we're not going to violate the law, but we're asking you to change the law. And I think that, to me, that was what I got out of it. But everybody reads it their own way. But thank everyone for coming, and we do listen.
Thank you, Mr. Scanlon. Vice President Polino, please.
Yes, thank you. So I think the previous board members have stated our position quite well as far as when it comes to law and what we're required to do and not to do. And yeah, I'm for choice too, and I agree with what you're saying. I have to say one thing, as some of the other board members said, as far as our students and our parents, I've been to a lot of public meetings in my 30 years plus of law enforcement, and standing like these gentlemen do. And I've heard a lot of rhetoric and yelling and berating and stuff. And I got to say that our parents are very well spoken. All of you that stood up here really did your due diligence and getting your stuff together, and you all spoke very well up here. And your points were very well taken. And as Dr. Clark said, I'm sure, and it gave me pause to stop and think about a lot of the things that I haven't thought about. But with that said, one thing I don't agree with, I know the people in the CDC and flip-flop back and forth about masks and so forth and such with. But we do know that any of us, no matter what age, can carry the virus. We may not get sick. And the fact that because you work in an office and you wear a mask and you all got COVID doesn't mean the fact that the virus went through that mask because you were at work. You may have not been wearing a mask and went to Walmart, picked it up, and then 4 days later you're at work wearing a mask and now you're sick. So what the mask may not do is stop the virus, but what it's going to do is stop me from spewing everything out 6 feet from where I'm sitting or standing and talking. So even though I'm vaccinated, I could be a carrier. So if it's going to stop me from spraying this to everybody next to me, if that's the only thing the mask does, then that's a good thing.
I'm not for telling people to get vaccinated. My children, yeah, I see what's out there, okay? I do a lot of work in a 10x10 back of an ambulance, and I've seen the effects of this, okay? I've seen very young, healthy, strapping individuals, very athletic, get COVID and come less than an inch from their life. So it's out there. And again, I'm not for this, but if the mask does one thing and it just stops me and all of us from spreading this stuff, then so be it. So with that said, we're welcoming back our children. We're going to do the best we can. You know, as far as that lawsuit thing, you know, I'm all for getting on that. I don't know what our legal stance is from the legal department, if we can or we can't, but I'm all for that, you know. And a lot of you parents came up here and you're telling us about this, that, and the other thing and civil disobedience, but you know what? You need to take your good points and you need to go be calling your legislators because they're the ones that are going to change the law. We can't do that. We can't do that. You know, and you should be dialing their numbers every day. You got senators, state senators right on Lacey Road here, okay? Take your signs, take your points, take your phones, and go stand in front of their office and tell them to push the governor to change it. And here's the most powerful thing you have coming up in November. You know, maybe it's time to jump ship of what you've been voting, go to the other side, and get some people out of office that may be willing to make those changes. So get out in November and make your voice heard.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Thank you, Mr. Polino. Okay, my turn. Mr. Zelinski, I really want to thank you, our new Assistant Superintendent. He came on last month, and he smoothly stepped into his new role. And we appreciate all your hard work on behalf of the students, and the collaboration between you and Dr. Clark is commendable. So thank you for coming on board and working so hard. As what everybody else was saying, we really appreciate all of you coming out tonight. We had 17 different people speak, which was wonderful. We really like to hear from the public and to hear your concerns. We understand and appreciate your frustration. We are equally frustrated, and as you can tell from all the comments tonight, the frustration level is high. Our administration is working tirelessly to open up our schools in a safe and efficient manner. We will continue to advocate to the governor, and we really want all of you to continue to advocate to the governor, just like Mr. Polino said. There's so many people here today. If every one of you could go, call the governor every day, go to Trenton, we'll all get in the bus with you. Let's go, let's advocate to the governor. However, as everybody said, as elected officials, we will abide by the law and follow the governor's executive order. With that being said, I'd like to close the meeting. Can we have a
Excuse me,
motion,
just
please?
1 second. I just want to clarify what Mr. Peters said. The number to the governor's office is 609-292-6000. I call it all day, every day if I have to, and I've been doing it for years. Call and ask for a governor's aid, give them all your information, and tell them you want that mask mandate rescinded. Write a letter, flood, P.O. Box 001 Trenton. Just pop up the website. You can also use a form online, direct to the governor. You have to take every action you can. It can't just be us. Thank you.
Okay, can we have a motion to adjourn the meeting, please? Thank you. All in favor?